Open the Town of
Second
Southbridge
chance cancel.
Board of Health meeting, March 12th, 2020. It is 6:37.
Thank you. I hope you're one of them.
Agenda item number 2, roll call.
Beth Stevens.
Here.
Roland Larochelle.
Here.
Dave Williams.
Here.
Anthony Postali.
Here.
Nicole Duffy.
Yeah.
Agenda item number 3, accept the minutes of the previous meeting. January 9th meeting. Did everyone have an opportunity to look through those?
Yeah.
Were there any questions, comments, concerns? You guys are okay with those?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept the January 9th as is.
I'll second.
All those in favor? All right, minutes accepted. And for the February 13th minutes.
Sure, I'll make a motion to accept them.
Second.
All those in favor? I wasn't here. Accepted.
You should have been. I wrote the minutes of this.
You wrote the minutes?
It was a good
Oh,
write.
well, that explains everything.
Yeah, it does. You didn't know how to work the recorder.
Thanks
I
a lot.
saw that. When does that ever happen? All right. Agenda item number 4, Citizens Forum. Is there anything from the citizens that anyone would like to address that is not currently on the agenda for this evening? That anyone would like to discuss? Going once, going twice. All right. Agenda item number 5, old business. We will go to A.
Can I break in?
Sure.
We have a public hearing at 6:45.
This is going to take longer than that?
No, I want to cancel that.
Oh,
The
Petition.
applicant petitioner will not be here tonight, so we will put it on for the next meeting.
okay.
Can we get information prior to
Okay.
the next meeting? What this is about,
What did that even
Yep.
was?
what it pertains to, because,
Yep, I'll send you a copy of the LOA request.
thank you. Send us a copy.
I can just send it to you and you give it to everybody.
I can if you
It's a lot of
If
pressure.
you're gonna be that way, just hit send, I'll do it.
Oh yeah, since Roland schedules the meeting.
I'll take your sweetener.
You're taking my sanitizer. What's wrong with you?
Is it alcohol based?
Okay.
I'm not saying it.
Proposed changes to solid waste regulations.
At our last meeting, I asked Miss Anna to come and explain some of the actions that we would prefer the Board of Health to take to,
What?
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm sorry, this was the old agenda.
Oh, that's the old agenda. We have.
wait a minute,
this-
what agenda was printed?
I have this
what
one
agenda
March
was posted?
10th.
This was
This
the
one.
one posted, that was the old one.
This-
Because it's got the stamp and
I
everything.
have the stamp. I'm looking right at it.
It was-
Sorry.
Old business is proposed changes to solid waste
Yes.
regulations.
We have. I'm looking at the correct one. He's
Dave?
got-
That's Dave.
You have to entertain the Dave factor here.
Right, right.
Well, I did down,
They just pulled up the wrong one. so-
No, Dave just has the wrong one that he pulled up. We're all looking
Way
at
to
the
go.
at the correct one.
Sometimes we just humor our Dave. So
it
anyhow,
was an earlier one, so.
we put old business first, proposed changes to solid waste regulations. I asked that these be put up front because we have a guest speaker, Miss Anna, who wants to get about her other business as quick as possible. So at our last meeting, we requested the Board of Health consider, in support of a couple of grants that we're applying for, to consider minorly changing the hauler regulations and to discuss the 64-gallon limit on trash. The board, by consensus, we had offered 2 options: to either enforce the 64-gallon solid or to discuss a possible overflow bag or overflow bag program. The board asked us to pursue the program, and I believe Ms. Anna can speak further on this, but I believe she prepared regulations as if we were going to enforce the 64 gallons, and also the program and regulation change if we were going to support the overflow bags. So we wanted to present it both ways so that the board could ensure that they wanted the overflow bags, with the realization that they did ask us to pursue the overflow bags. So I will defer to Ms. Anna.
All right, thank you. So the first proposals, as Andy mentioned, we're proposing to make just slight changes to the hauler regulations. So that's solid waste regulation 7.2.1. And on the copies that I sent around, the first one is our redlined version. The second page shows the changes intact, and then the third page would be the original regulation. So what we're proposing to do is to, the state through the Recycling Dividends Program grant is asking municipalities to require that haulers provide bundled services to their customers. And this would include both haulers that take care of residential and commercial generators and customers. So the changes to our regulation, we'd already put in the regulation about bundled service, but the way that we worded it before it was we must offer. We're asking to change that one word, offer, to say provide. And also to make the regulation pertaining to both residential and commercial customers and generators. So we sort of, I reworked the language just to make it work within the regulation. You'll see on this page that I removed C because it was redundant. It was just to kind of clean up the language a little bit.
So section 721 will now reflect A, B, and C. It will change the word offer to provide, essentially is the major change. Anna and I beat this back and forth because we wanted to ensure that we were not mandating that businesses particularly have to get the same service. So if they want to contract separately for recycling, we wanted to make sure that was still okay because businesses are usually large generators of waste and large generators of recycling, and they can often get a better deal by contracting separately. So we didn't want to mandate on them that they had to partake of this, but we wanted to ensure that the haulers offered it. This would be the first step. We're doing this to qualify for a couple of points on the RTG grant, our RDP grant. However, this would be our first step in starting to work with recyclers to ensure we're going to be looking to make sure that they have a contract for recycling. I'm not sure that we can take on the enforcement of this in the short time, but we want to set it up so that once we get curbside in control where we want it, we can then move Anna's efforts on to commercial. And I think this does it without undue harm on the commercial vendors. We are requiring that residential vendors use the same contractor for recycling and solid waste, MSW.
Can I add one other thing to that? The language that we're also proposing to change is to, so there's two different, let me just read it. So for residential customers, the service should be provided by the same permitted hauler. But for commercial, we ask that the same hauler provide both services unless the customer can prove to the hauler that he's getting separate recycling services by another permitted hauler. Reason being, commercial, as Andy mentioned, commercial accounts generally are big producers of recyclables. If they're a store, they've got cardboard. If they're a bank, they've got a lot of paper. So they're going to shop for the best price, and we wouldn't want to hinder them from doing that. So they could opt to do that, right?
So we feel it's a minor change. I don't think it really adversely affects the intent of the original regulations, but it does qualify us. We've called up the state, and they assure us it qualifies us for 2 additional points. Again, a point being worth $1,100. So when we apply for the grant next year, we can say that this is in place. So if
This
the
year.
board is comfortable with that language,
So, okay, I just wanted to
Yep.
clarify one thing. So it would be this year's grant that we would be applying for with this, mid-June.
I have no problem.
I don't either, so this would be on top of the ones that we already,
this would be an amendment of the one we have. Beth?
I have one question. Not knowing, serving on the curbside advisory committee, we're not knowing where the council's gonna go in, what is it, 3.5 years? My only question is, do we have to separate residential where it has to be the same hauler for the grant?
That
Because
is,
of, my reason for saying this, if it is elected by the council, that is let the residents get their own, they could go out and look for bids on who's cheaper to do each as well. So if the town does provide the service, I can agree with this, that you get it all residential, all in one, like we have now. But I'm just saying, if things change, do we have, does it impact the grant? If it does, I agree with this now, but we'll have to come and change it if the pickup changes at
it,
that time.
yes, may I?
Yeah.
So it does influence the grant.
Okay.
The language that we set up, I emailed it off to the state, and they were like, yes, that meets the
Okay.
criteria. But I will say one other thing. It's really highly unlikely that a residential hauler would want to do that, to opt to just pick up recycling for somebody. It's
I
not
see
in
that.
there
I see 2 different bids from 2 different companies in Sturbridge all the time.
at people's homes.
Yes.
That may be that they just had a leftover
Yes.
bin.
And they
Yeah.
go get who they want, but they're
Right.
required to have trash
Right.
and recycling. So the resident gets it. So I won't waste any more time, but whatever
Yes.
the council decides down the road, if this has an impact, we'll change it at that time.
Okay. It's okay to.
Very quick
Yes?
question. I don't have the bylaws in front of me. Will this require us to change the general bylaws in any way?
These bylaws are under the Board of Health Code of Regulation.
I was thinking of the solid waste bylaws and the general bylaws. Will these change those?
When we did the solid waste bylaws under the Board of Health, we actually started with the general bylaw, and we support the general bylaw. We just added a whole lot more detail into the Board of Health ones. So the Board of Health bylaws absolutely support the general bylaws. They repeat the general bylaws. They just bring enforcement directly under the Board of Health and authority to adopt under the Board of Health.
I'm just asking, does this change
It
it?
will not change it.
we shouldn't.
That's all I'm asking.
Second half of that is, we cannot even qualify for this grant if we do not enforce a control of quantity. So we came to the board with with 2 proposals. One was our current law says thou shalt have 64 gallons and thou shalt not have any more. We talked last meeting about lifestyle changes and big events that may produce more trashes periodically. Lifestyle changes being things like everybody lives on Amazon Prime, and it may be a lifestyle difficulty to hold it to 64 gallons. So we batted it around for a while. Again, the board, we offered we can develop a program to enforce the 64 gallons, or we can develop a program to allow overflow bags at a cost. So I'm going to let Anna, the board kind of by consensus said to pursue the overflow bags, but we stayed on both topics because there was some dissension, and we want to present both opportunities to the board again. But Miss Anna will discuss what regulation change would have to happen if we go with enforcing the 64 gallons, and she will describe the program and regulation changes if the board opts to go with the overflow bags. So again,
Okay.
Miss Anna, I'll defer.
So on this one, the first page shows the option of enforcing the 64-gallon limit toters as is. And so there's just an insertion of language that says that anything over that would not be collected. The second page shows language that we propose if the board chooses to go the route of an overflow bag. And the language for the regulation is very simple. You know, that households may purchase these town-approved overflow bags, and that only containerized trash or town-approved overflow bags will be collected. And that's in Regulation 5.3.1. And there's one other section of the regulation where we would just tidy up the language, and that's in 5.1.2. And where it said previously loose waste or uncontained bags will not be collected. In the case of the bags, it would simply say we would cross off or uncontained bags, and it would be loose waste or will not be collected. So I just, we have spent a lot of time on, looking what other communities are doing, kind of looking at this as a whole and looking at our program as it is. A 64-gallon toter holds 5 kitchen trash bags on average. So that's a lot of trash. Other communities are going to even smaller toters now, 33-gallon or 45-gallon. So we're pretty generous in what we're offering for residents. Because we're not enforcing the 64-gallon limit, we are in essence allowing residents to exercise an overflow bag system at their will, or as many as they want. There's a rule of thumb out there that any size container, people will fill it. If we put out a 96-gallon, residents are going to fill it. It's just human nature. I'd fill it, it's just like your pocketbook, right? You get a bigger pocketbook, you find more things to put in it or whatever. Or your paycheck, you can always use 10% more of your paycheck than you have for a paycheck. We looked at the 2019 numbers for how much trash that we collect curbside, and looked at how much per household. And our households are generating about 1,300 pounds a year, which is about 25 pounds a week. Pay-as-you-throw communities and those with trash limits with overflow bags have a decrease in trash production between 17 and 38%. We surveyed 5 communities that gave us those numbers. They found also that recycling increased between 13 and 98%. So I think we can say that if we enforce the program, whether it be not having overflow bags or having overflow bags, we're going to reduce the amount of trash that we collect. One of the things that we need to think about is that we need to separate what the town is providing and what residents, and making residents accountable for what they produce, for trash, as we're moving forward into a time when we will not have a curbside contract. We looked at these 5 communities that both, kind of closely resembled Southbridge. All 5 of them said they did not see any increase in illegal dumping. One community, Malden, opted to increase their illegal dumping fines to $300 a fine, and they also added signs to areas where they, frequently have illegal dumping. We spoke to a person that she's from Wastewise, who's like the big bag company, and what she suggested is that we look at a 5-year projection of costs if we do go the overflow bag route. In other words, right now the bags would be priced a little higher, but then in 5 years, would still be able to support a program. So they generally take the cost of the bag, cost of disposal, cost of collection, get that amount, and then from there create the amount that they would charge for the bags. So currently, the costs of a bag, the disposal and collection, we estimate to be about $2. So the break-even cost is about $2 a bag. Andy and I hashed this out quite a bit, and we kind of came to a range of consideration for the board of between $2.50 and $5. The reason being, we want to have it enough of a cost so that people wouldn't just naturally opt to create more trash, that they would consider it before they would actually buy it, but not so cost prohibitive that people in this community whose income isn't all that high, the majority of people, that it would be in, a real difficulty to buy a bag should they need it. One of the things we would do is would continue to do a lot of recycling education to try and help people to understand, maybe you can reduce your trash by putting more into your recycle bin. So we'd continue with that, keep that strong. We would plan to sell the bags at local retail stores, as other towns do, and considering also whether we would sell them here at Town Hall. We might also consider selling single bags at Town Hall, so that if people don't want to buy a whole roll, they could buy just one. When we looked at the collection contract considerations moving forward, if we do have another curbside contract in another 4 years, the consensus was that if you have a semi-automated trash collection, it actually is it's not any burden on the hauler. Matter of fact, it might actually make it easier. Currently, it would make it easier in the town of Southbridge because, there would be more limit to the trash. And overall, the programs generally limit the trash or reduce it, so that would be, make it easier for the hauler than a limited trash thing. The only caveat I would add about that is if we do this route, we do need to support the hauler. In other words, we cannot say, okay, we have this in place, but could you go and pick up Anna Smith's trash because, we like her or whatever. You know what I mean? We would have to support them. If we put the limit out there, we have to enforce it and not let it waver. Holden is doing overflow bags. From what we're hearing, there was no additional cost associated with that when they put the contract in place. So, yeah, that's about what I have for that.
I guess I would repeat the question I asked at the last meeting after hearing this presentation. At this point, we need to pick a direction. Would we move towards the overflow bags, or would we move towards enforcement, or do we want to do anything?
You want me to start?
Ready?
Start, Colin.
Well,
Okay, one question
Go ahead.
for you right off. 512. So if we do go overflow bags, they still have to be in a container, correct?
No.
No.
Okay, number one, I have a problem. Because if a resident is going to put food waste, well, let me start. We have a bylaw that we put together years ago that has never been enforced, and I always have had an issue with a bylaw. Why waste my time if we're not going to enforce it? We have an extremely large abuse on multiple trash containers because it's free. I also agree, lifestyles, you have a party, you have things going on, occasionally you're going to have an overflow of trash. I agree with that. Styrofoam takes up a lot of room. On a windy day, when you put styrofoam in an overflow bag, it is going like a kite. Flip side, an overflow container is for whatever the resident can't fit in their trash container. So if it's food waste, we are violating our own bylaw because I know in my neighborhood, if I didn't put it in a bucket, even before we had the rule for the bucket, the crows would take everything out of the bag. So when they come and pick up my trash anyway, they open a cover and they take the bags out. I would still want to see containers. It's neater, things aren't going to blow around, and it's going to keep the critters out of the bags. The other thing is what is the average? $5 a bag is a lot of money. You've got a new family with all these diapers, and this is a disposable world. Have you looked at the average for what everybody charges per bag? What is our break even? What did you say, $2?
$2 right now, currently.
And then the other issue is that if even down the road that the town elects to go to a drop-off and have a drop-off like we used to have on Saturdays, that could help alleviate some of the problem because there would be an avenue to get rid of extra trash once a week, if not more. $5 I think is very, very steep for our town. I don't know. What size are these bags?
I just want to
An
respond.
overflow bag. What?
These are 33-gallon bags, and Anna and I have actually been back and forth on this.
Okay.
Should we set it close to our break even, therefore just sustaining the program, but not deferring people from utilizing it or overutilizing it? Or, as Dave brought up at our last meeting, overflow bags are going to give people the ability to create more trash.
Yes, it will.
So do we want to set a price that's a deterrent to that and encourages them only to have it on those special occasions when
Right,
when they run over?
right,
I mean, there's no good answer, but I agree with that, because if
Right.
you're gonna create more trash than the rest of us, you pay for it.
right.
I agree with that.
All right, I'll be quick. I think this goes against the sustainability and what we've been trying to do. Reducing the amount of styrofoam. Yes, we can't control Amazon packaging and styrofoam, but we should instead be looking at maybe a styrofoam recycling day, or a container where people could bring their styrofoam, because I don't think it's a great idea to even getting rid of it. It's bad for the landfill. Styrene is not a great thing to have in the landfill to begin with, and it's, as we're moving towards the styrofoam, a foam styrene ban, it's counter to that. As Anna pointed out, 64 gallons is extremely generous. Okay, and I think this runs counter to the people trying to recycle. Okay, it's too easy to just throw it into a bag, whether it's recyclable or not. I'm all for giving you 2 or 3 recyclable containers, but making it easier to put more in the landfill, I think is the wrong direction to be going. So
I understand what you're saying, but I'm not suggesting you're saying we turn a blind eye then, but the problem still exists. So do we better educate? Do we talk about the recycling more and more? But still, there are those overflow bags. We see them in the town all the time. So what's the solution? And I agree that, we say 64 gallons is big enough, but then I just heard Roland say, well, we have people with new families and they produce a little more than others. So
can I just quickly counter? I bet I could go to their throw out and find half the stuff that they're throwing out is recyclable. Okay.
Exactly.
And we're not even recycling. And that if they took that stuff and they recycled what they could recycle, there would be a whole lot less in the. I think we're okay. So I just disagree. We just disagree.
right.
I agree with Dave. I mean, I think this is a step backwards. I mean, part of having a reasonable amount, reasonable sized trash bin is so that our trash is contained. Having an overflow bag defeats that whole purpose, because now, again, we have a trash bag sitting on the side of the street. That was not the intent. Our regulations say that all trash has to be contained in a can. If you can't fit it in a can, then it doesn't go. I'm sorry, then you're going to have to keep it in your garage for a week till the next week, or figure out your recycling program in your home. Because I can tell you, I've got a slew of boxes that I have broken down and are sitting just waiting to go out because I just don't have enough room in my recycle bin. I think it's counterintuitive to what we're trying to do. And I understand, but I think education is the key. I think that people just don't want to do it. And there's just always going to be those people that just don't want to do it. Nicole?
I think on a regular basis, I agree with you. I think most of us agree. I think
in my mind, Christmas is the big thing, like that whole, and there is just like a ton of stuff from Amazon that you can't recycle, and that puts people in a bind. So that would be my only concern with that. Otherwise, I absolutely agree with you. It's like we need to learn how to recycle. We need to make do with what we have. But I think the Christmas week, I can just see, I guess, a lot of dumping and things going on of that nature. So, yeah. Well, I just wanted to just kind of reiterate what I was alluding to before, is that enforcement as well as education is really, if we don't enforce our limit, whatever it is, be it just the 64-gallon limit or a 64-gallon limit with overflow bags, if we don't enforce it, then we're not going to get to where I hear the board wants to go. Just my thoughts on it.
And just quickly, my comments were not to give people a pass, but you hit the nail on the head. We have a lot of abuse, and it's freebie.
Yeah.
My wife and I have one kitchen trash bag, usually per week. But there are places that I know that bring in trash from their friends and relatives and businesses out of town, because we do it for nothing. Enforcement is number one because the time has come. But I think if and I understand what you're saying, if we put the price there big enough, your graduation party, your summer picnic, those food plates and everything shouldn't go in a bag on the side of the road because they're going to be all over the neighborhood. So if we put them in a container and you want to make more trash, you're going to pay for it. But the law-abiding people shouldn't be allowing these other people abusing it to ride on their back. And that's what's happening right now. When you go by a residence and they've got 3-4 containers out there, that's not what it says now. So hitting them in a pocketbook is going to make them think twice and learn.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Did you say people who were doing the bags, there was a decrease? What were those? You said what? There was
Yes. So we looked at 5 communities that sort of were similar to Southbridge, as close as we could get. And they found a trash reduction of between 17 and 38%. And they were either pay-as-you-throw or using overflow bags.
Right, but
So
so
they weren't-
those were
So
pay
it's
as
a
you throw.
combination.
Not all, though.
They weren't.
Dave, not all.
Right, so
They
They were,
weren't all
But-
just strictly
but-
pay
so
as you
what were they, what were the ones that were like our, because you can't compare our community with a pay-as-you-throw community, because we don't have that.
that.
No,
So
I
that
get that.
can't, be- that's not a fair comparison. So,
Well, what the comparison is in limiting. That's the point I'm trying to make, that the comparison is in limiting. So whatever way you choose to limit it, whether it be pay-as-you-throw, which we're not there, but a container of 64 gallons limit, period, or even with the overflow bags, they're seeing a reduction.
oh, I misunderstood. Maybe I think you did, that you were, I think it was saying that with the overthrow bag, it was actually a reduction in the amount of solid waste.
I am saying that in conjunction with a limit of a toter. So if you have a 64-gallon toter and
Okay.
overflow bags, you're still seeing a reduction in the amount of trash because people have to pay for that bag. So it's a version of pay as you throw in a sense, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And also an increase in recycling. And could I just answer Rolly's other question? You asked me about an average of the price of the bags. I didn't do an
Through these
average,
communities roughly.
but I can
Just
tell you
among
it was
all.
like 150 to 250
Okay.
was the range.
And ours was $2.
Well,
Roughly.
we're suggesting
The break
between
even-
250 and
the
5.
The break even is
Yeah, break even.
right at $2,
Okay.
but we're proposing that the board set this price anywhere
Enough.
from $250 if we are looking at this as we are a assisted community and it's a hardship to buy a bag, or as much as $5 to say, we don't want to encourage these overflows, we're giving you
Right.
these
Right.
as an opportunity.
Right.
But setting the price of the bag can be done into the future. I think right now what Anna and I need is direction from the board. Would you like us to pursue an overflow bag program where we can bring you back the exact language of the code, because this is going to require a code adoption, and you know that takes 2.5 months. And the program can be vetted out later, or does the board want us to lean towards enforcement of the 64, in which case we'll work the language in the code that way. So we just need direction right now, which way you want us to work to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
Do you want more discussion or you want a motion?
Could I
Well, Bill, I just want to say something to Tony's point. You're talking about, the trash that we see all the time. Part of that, thinking about it, part of that is enforcement. And I feel as though we're not having as much enforcement as we could. And I think that if we implemented enforcement as well as more education, a lot of that would change.
I will
Because
say we're writing average of 6 to 10 tickets a week
For-
against curbside trash violations. So we are writing the tickets.
But is
Right.
this the bulk, or is this?
It's a
you have
combination of bulk, it's a combination of uncontained bags, it's a combination of
It's
illegal
trash.
Multiple
containers.
containers, multiple Southbridge
Yep.
containers that's all over town?
Yeah, it's a combination
Because-
of what Hector's seeing at the curbside.
There's a lot of these all over town of
Yep.
2 Southbridge containers.
Okay, that's
That is
not,
illegal.
yeah, but that's not the issue on the table right now.
But I'm saying
I-
Well, no, but,
enforcement.
but
It's still
enforcement
part
is
of
enforcement.
enforcement.
No, I agree
But
with
if you have multiple cans, then you
No, I-
have more than
I-
your
correct.
64.
I
That's
absolutely,
the
I
point.
think we're all,
Correct.
enforcement is kind of key on all this,
Yeah.
regardless of which
Yeah.
system we go.
Right, the easiest way to enforce this
Yeah.
is to not pick up.
Right.
Not pick up, whether it be the container or the container and the overflow bags.
So
That's the simplest way. We would instruct the hauler, you just don't pick it up.
Pick up one.
If the board chooses to go overflow bags, the enforcement will be, Casella, until your contract is up, you only pick up town container and the overflow bags. No white bags, no green bags, just the bags we approve.
So because you're writing the tickets, it sounds like we're getting overflow, it's just a matter of which direction the overflow is
In
going.
the last 2 weeks, we brought in $1,800
Yeah.
in tickets. I
Yeah.
think it was 1,800 I wrote in the, I just wrote it in the town report, in the bi-weekly report. I think we wrote $2,500 in tickets and we got back 1,800, I think.
Okay.
So we're writing the tickets.
Right, so they exist.
Hang on one
Go ahead.
second. Wait a minute.
Just a quick question. I'm all for enforcement. If we have a regulation, we should be enforcing that first.
Yeah.
And as we move forward with what we're going to do. My question is, on my street, I have houses on the street that are group homes. They have 4 or 5 containers out. So why are they allowed to have containers if they're a single-family, technically residence? It's a house. But why are they allowed to have 4 or 5 containers out of trash? And I'm held to a 64-gallon container.
They should have been. If you can give me the address of that, give me a call tomorrow.
So,
I will look that up.
are those, so I guess my quick question for this, I know, do they fall under the regulation of like multifamily houses as a commercial hauler, or is it
A group home or
the residential rehab type
Yes.
houses?
those
Like 10
are
people
listed
living there.
in the building code as single-family homes. We have to treat them as such. So we are going to treat them as such.
So they would be required
They
with
should
one
not have that many.
container?
They should have one container if there's one dwelling unit according to the assessors.
Yeah.
So if you can get me that information tomorrow, I will look it up, I will see which container they're supposed to have there, and I will have Hector pick up the other ones.
Well, yeah, they use their private ones, they don't have all the town ones.
Not the
but they
town
have
Well,
those
then
little
those-
containers.
and so those
So the
shouldn't
question
be
is,
picked
you know,
up.
if that's the case, they're required to have the one container. If you do the pay by
Right.
bag, then let them pay for the additional bags. But we should be enforcing the bylaws that we
Yep.
have on the books. because-
Wouldn't happen if it wouldn't be free.
Right, so.
So,
Can you tell me how we're trending since you've started to write tickets? Do you have that information at all?
I do not have that information at all. I can tell you consistently, the number of tickets is not going down. So
right.
I can't say that. When we first jumped into this, we were writing 10, 15, and 20 tickets a
Right.
week. We are down 6-ish. So it has trended. I believe it's flattened. So the issue becomes, I find 3 on this route today, I found 2 on that route yesterday. I don't have time to do the whole route. But I believe it's flatlined.
Is it consistently, if I may, Madam Chair, Is it repeat offenders or different all the time?
I'd have to talk to Hector on
Okay.
that. I don't track that regularly.
And they're
So
still
we'll have to-
dumping
I
though, right?
can't,
We'll have to look at something for
That's
for repeat
that's
offenders,
still
because tickets aren't
dumping,
working.
Okay.
It's still dumping, we're still getting illegal dumping.
Yeah, we're still getting
Yeah,
illegal dumping.
Do you want to make a motion? Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we go with the enforcement of the 64-gallon single collection container. And with the uncontained trash will not be collected. So I make that motion.
Is there a second? I'll make the second.
Yeah, just a second.
Anyone?
But, well,
Comments?
Ron
Well,
has.
I'm just curious, and I came in late to this conversation, but as of right now, Priscilla's taking away the trash for free, correct? So limiting it now doesn't help anybody in my mind but Casella at this point in time. I get that you want to train people and teach people and get them in the path, but why would we want to, at least now, the Southbridge residents are going to put this trash for free, make them hold it into their house or do something else? Well, how does that benefit us at the moment? I guess I'm wondering. Maybe
We
I missed
haven't, because
Why
we
not?
still, our regulations was still a single container. The proposal was to allow more, was the
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, so your motion is to allow more, not less.
No.
And enforcement.
To enforce what we
To
have.
enforce what we have instead
Wouldn't that
of,
mean
instead of an
people keep
overflow
more
bag.
trash in their house until,
Well, we don't know what people do in their homes.
I mean, well, I guess I'm trying to understand how that benefits the town when Casella's paying to take that trash now. Why would, well, how does that benefit us? Am I missing something? I'm trying
Can
to.
I,
Go ahead, Dave.
so right now our regulations are one 64-gallon and then the recycling container. They can have as much recycling as they, but the proposal was to allow them to pay, to do a pay as you throw in addition to what we have allowed. Now, ultimately, we want to move to changing a mindset, as we go forward. It's going to take years, that to getting people to recycle more. I personally don't feel that the answer is to create a system that allows them to put less in recycling and more there. So nothing here is like, all we're doing is
So if you were to, if a person was gonna buy this bag, the overflow of the bag, who would we get the money from that?
what's that?
If you were to create
It would,
a
it
new
would, go
bag
to, it would go to
system,
the town.
and people had to pay for the bags for the overflow, my question is, will the town get the money from that revenue? Is that what you're thinking?
Right.
Andy, go ahead.
I have proposed to subcommittee and council a revolving fund for trash, things that are hard to get rid of, tires, electronic stuff like that. My proposal would be that this money would go into any additional monies above revenues, would go into that account and offset the cost to the town of holding future hazardous waste events, any collection events like that. So the town would hold it in a revolving fund to pay for disposal of stuff that doesn't normally get covered under a contract.
So if they were to, just, I'm trying to think this through as you're talking about, right? So if they were to pay for the bag, we would get the money, the seller would still have to take the bag and throw it away and make everything. So we're essentially collecting money for a bag, and we're not doing anything other than making them buy the bag, but the seller's still gonna be getting rid of the trash, right? That's the thought process, if I understand that?
Until the contract's over.
Until the contract's over,
Right.
and then we have.
Roland, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if the seller would
What-
object to that,
What do you
because
object, I think
we're
what
taking
the,
the money and they're.
Yeah.
still-
what the intent, I think, of this committee, when we did this back, and this was, I think dated 2017 to the solid waste, was not so much to do the town a favor or Casella a favor, but do the environment a favor by trying to do more for recycling. Looking at the future, we have a heck of a lot of abuse because we have this bylaw that hasn't been enforced. And part of this discussion is that when the contract with Casella goes away, hopefully we can have this education done so that the general taxpayer doesn't pay a fortune that if you want to circumvent the system, you're gonna pay for it. Not on the back of everybody else. But this bylaw has been in place since, God, when did you get the photos? 17?
We started voluntary in 15, we went for 2 years, I believe.
Yep.
And we got the
And-
toters in November of 17, I believe.
And that's what it was for, to have that toter and to educate people to recycle more. So less goes into the landfill.
Right.
But other communities around have a pay-as-you-go and have some kind of a penalty as a learning curve. But it's very easy not to do that in my town when I can come to this town and give it to my brother and he gets it for free.
So,
And that's what's happening, and that's what we're kind of concerned, because I don't personally care about Casella as an individual.
Right.
My concern is my town, and what are we doing in 3
Right,
years?
right.
And we need that learning curve, because human nature, human nature doesn't learn in an hour.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there's
Yeah.
big pushback.
and I don't want to keep going
We're
on.
trying to do
Just so you
reasonable.
understand, the pay-as-you-throw program, the cost of the bag is supposed to be designed to pay for the cost of getting rid of the trash. In the situation you're describing, the cost of the bag is kind of a penalty because it's not paying for trash, because someone's getting rid of it for free anyway.
But we wanted to.
No,
That's
the-
the
no,
concept, I'm
no.
just letting you know the concept.
No,
No.
the point of this extra throwaway bag, we want it to kind of be prohibitive, because we
Right.
don't want people to generate extra trash.
Right.
We want it to be available to them, maybe if they have a party and they
Right.
have extra trash, but we don't want them to use it on a regular basis
Right.
and
Right.
abuse it, because that
Right.
defeats the whole purpose of having a certain amount of trash.
Right, you want it to be.
That's the whole
Sometimes
point.
They buy the
Deter.
bag, they recycle more, I get it.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the
what
whole
we're trying to
point.
I'm
do.
saying that's not the way the system works in pay-as-you-throw, but I understand what you're
Correct,
Yeah.
that's not,
Right.
because we're not trying to do pay as you
Right.
throw.
Right.
Just, you know what, how do people feel about, if we just charge the bags $5 a bag and that they had to come here to get them? Just putting it out there.
And we have a motion on the
I'm
table.
going to go back to, we can figure out the program later, there's people waiting on business here.
And
I
other
think
things that
we
we
can
need to
figure
do.
out the specifics of the program. What we need to put that program together is direction from the board. And there is a motion on the
So there's a
table.
motion on the
Correct.
table
So
now.
we need
Motion
to
on the
know,
table
so we
now.
want to set up a program to enforce the current 64 gallon, or do we want to move forward and set up a program to do the optional overflow bags? And if the board can give us that guidance right now, we can come back with the language and work
But-
towards,
Isn't it both? Enforce 64 only, or enforce 64 with the option?
The motion on the table right now is to enforce
It's
64
just the
only.
64 only.
right.
Only.
Is the motion on the
That's the
table.
motion on the table, right?
Madam Chair, can I just ask a question?
Yes,
Why aren't we enforcing it already?
exactly.
Regulation, why do you need a motion from this board in direction to the inspection
No.
department?
No,
No.
this is to meet guidelines
guidelines?
for a grant. This is to meet
But-
guidelines for grant money.
But we're already supposed
So
to be
that they-
enforcing it,
Correct.
so why do you have that?
Correct.
I'm just,
Exactly.
Because it's
That's-
about the proposal to allow the extra bag,
If I can.
and that word.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are currently enforcing it, writing tickets. He cannot cover the whole trash route in a day, stopping and writing tickets. And
Right.
so we are enforcing it.
Right,
Unfortunately, we can't get full compliance because we can't hit everybody every single
Right.
day. So the question will become, I don't want you to decide if we should enforce the 64 or the overflow bags. Obviously, we enforce the 64 as long as that's the regulation, as best we can. And we will probably move on to don't pick up anything outside the 64 will be our next step towards enforcement. I need to know if this board wants
But
to
we should have
keep
been
to that.
doing that
Oh, we
already.
can
If
we-
the board wants to
But we
keep
need-
to that, or do they want to move on
Can we move on the
and
motion?
allow for the...
But we
the
can't even
overflow?
do that. That's the problem.
But can we move on the motion?
It's going to be
Yes,
easy.
we have a motion
But
on
is
the
this-
table.
Like with Jackson, is this even a motion? Shouldn't the motion be to look into overflow or not?
In some ways, you're right, because
Right,
because
the
as,
rest of it is
Right
Because
already
the
now-
rest of
in
it
the
is
rules.
already there, and that's what should be happening.
so okay, fine. Let's make this simple. I'll withdraw my motion, and then the motion would have to be to allow the bags. And if that fails, we'll default to the original
There you go.
64.
Could I say something though? There is an addition to the language of the regulation that we need for the grant, which would be that
It
it's,
shall not be collected.
yeah, whatever,
Okay.
anything other than the 64-gallon cart would not be collected.
Okay, well, that's,
But that
The
still
the motion
follows.
works. The motion works
motion,
because we
yes.
can write the law if they choose
Yeah.
not to follow.
Because that's what it is now. We're
We'll
still
amend-
limited right now in the
we'll
present
amend the
bylaw at
regulation.
64. So that
I withdrew
applies.
my motion, and
Yep.
I'm not making a motion on the other one because I won't be voting
I'll
for it.
second.
I'm not making a motion for the second one, because I'm not gonna vote
Okay.
for it. So for the back, if somebody wants to make a motion,
If anyone wants to make a motion.
I guess it failed.
I guess not.
So I'll make a motion to just add the uncontained trash will not be collected to the current, just to make it a motion. That it will be, so we
add.
actually took it forward.
Will not be collected.
So I have a question, if I may.
Monique?
So the uncollected trash, Monique Mann, 20 Maple Street, the uncollected trash that you guys are voting on for Casella not to pick up, and when the residents don't pick it up, and you know they're not going to pick it up, who is going to pick it up? And how are we going to pay for it to be picked up, the possible overtime for the DPW? We have people on Main Street throwing their trash into the containers that are meant for pedestrians. Literally overflowing. And, I mean, it's already not being enforced with, like, I drive around town and I see, like, like TVs, mattresses, everything out when it shouldn't be out.
Oh.
Because I know Tuesday, but who is going to enforce, we already have a mess in town, who is going to enforce that? Who's going to pick it up? Did you guys think about that?
So that,
So,
you
Monique,
go.
I'm just curious.
Monique, this doesn't change anything because the people that are throwing their trash out on Main Street have already been throwing their trash out on Main Street.
And Casella's
I have
been
been,
picking it up.
and I've already seen it.
Right, but Casella's been
weeks.
picking it up, so now you're making a motion to vote on Casella not to pick up any loose bag trash.
They have been not picking it up.
Yes, they have, because
No,
I actually
they-
put
there
a
have
loose
been-
bag out there myself. I put a loose bag out there myself because 2 weeks I forgot to put out my trash because I'm just like that much in rush in the morning. So I'll put a trash by my container and yes, they pick it up.
Okay. Well, so
Nobody
good,
on my street gets to pick it
good
either.
for Casella. I'm glad that they're picking that.
It was a question.
Well, I
You
just,
don't have to be like that.
no, what I'm saying is the
I know.
mattresses and filling the
That's-
trash cans on Main Street is
All
not
right.
what we're talking
Dave.
about right now.
I understand, but I'm just trying to tell you, we have a trash
We're-
problem in Southbridge.
You're
People
correct, we do.
aren't- They're not going,
And a lot of that is because of enforcement.
Hmm.
And we've been trying to work on that. It's a work in progress.
I know, they came down my street and I was told that they're targeting the counselors first because they wanted the town counselors to know that they were out there. I'm like, why don't you
Okay, I'm not-
actually attack the areas that need to be attacked? Is what my-
Don't know anything about that, so we are going to move on. Roland,
I don't see a properly worded motion in here with regard to overflow bags. First of all, so the only thing, in my opinion, that I can vote on is exactly what David said, what we presently have in the ruling. Because in the second page, it says, household may purchase town-approved overflow bags. I have seen nothing about specs, colors, how can you buy them, how are you gonna store them? I was led to believe that we are going to say, yes, pursue information, more information on an overflow system, so that we can talk about it, but I can't vote for an overflow system that doesn't give me any particulars to an overflow system.
It already failed.
Ed, or
You know, so,
Andy.
I believe Miss Anna just laid out the basics of the plan. Again, if you want, I can get that plan detailed down to the last color. But the reality is, we were looking for guidance on which direction to go, before we put the resources into developing this plan or that plan. So if you're looking for more detail, we can bring that back to you, put the resources into it. But if you're asking for what color are these bags going to be, and that, I think we need to have a determination that we want to chase this before we start getting into that detail.
And the plan, I don't believe, would be a part of the regulation, right?
It would have to be,
The plan would
as a
not be.
solid waste.
It
Well,
would
why
not be
would it
part
not
of the
be?
regulation. The regulation would allow, the plan wouldn't be a part of the regulation. The regulation would be that town-approved overflow bags are acceptable. The plan involving what color are these gonna be, who's gonna sell these things,
How much?
how much, that would not be in the regulation. Fees are in a separate regulation for the Board of Health.
Okay, I believe we had a motion on the table about adding the uncontained trash will not be collected. Was that still on the table? I made a, no, that one I added.
That one's still.
That one I added just
Yeah, that
to
wasn't-
make
Yes,
this
just to
That was
all
extra.
all kind of fit that there would be a board vote. Is that still on the table?
Yes.
Okay, so I make that motion.
Restate the motion?
That we add uncontrolled trash will not be collected to the regulation that Ann is proposing.
That's not what we just did.
It's the uncontained part.
What's that?
No, Tony.
It's uncontained. No,
Yeah.
we will not pick it up.
All I'm asking is just to add, is to allow Anna to write them.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So not the sentence before that, right? Just so I'm clear, because...
No, the whole thing.
No.
Right now,
Okay.
we already have waste
Got it.
exceed 64 or any single period for an individual should not.
No, that was language I added.
Okay, so,
It's up above, but I just reiterated it.
okay. You want me to just do the whole thing? I make a motion that, to insert waste that exceed 64 gallons for any single collection period for an individual shall not be collected. Uncontained trash will not be collected.
It's already in a regulation.
I'm just trying to, are we,
I thought it was.
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand.
what?
This is already in the regulation.
Well,
so-
Anna just asked me, said it wasn't, that I needed to add it because,
Is it just that the wording is different, Andy? Because I'm confused.
I believe it's in the regulation now. Anna, did we have to make a change to the language in order to satisfy the grant requirement? I thought we were
For
only
this
changing-
one, I guess not, now that I'm reading it, but I've added
I don't
it just...
understand, because I feel like this.
Well,
The motion
because
would
the
be to
one-
leave the motion would be.
all I do is want to add that.
Take no
one
action.
statement.
Well, the reason why
It-
it doesn't say in the regulation what will happen.
The motion would be to
So
take no
it's
action.
to clean up that, you know what I mean? Like, yes, it says that the limit is 64 gallons, but it doesn't say what happens if you put more. So the language
But that,
just
that,
clarifies it.
that fell in the penalty clause of the,
Yeah,
of
it's in there. I know it's in there.
The
that it says
regulation.
trash will not be
Yes, it's right
picked
here.
My
up.
mistake.
Loose bags will not be picked up.
All right, my error.
Yep.
Sorry, guys.
So we don't need
Sorry.
anything,
So we don't
right?
need anything. It's
So we
done.
could be, it could be no action.
No action,
The
okay.
reality is, if we don't want to do anything, we can just move forward without a motion. If nobody
Or
makes a
table
motion,
it.
Fine.
if nobody makes
No,
a motion
no,
to
it's not
support the
No, it's
overflow
not
bags,
tabled.
No, it's
then it
not
stays
table.
status quo.
Yep.
It's
It's
So-
that's it. It's done.
So if that's where we sit,
No
then
motion.
Anna and I will work on the re-language of the first part of this that we introduced and basically reintroduce it next week as a finished product,
Okay.
and then we'll move towards adopting.
Okay.
All right. So we're done that?
Yes.
All right, Madam Chair, I would like to entertain, for the concern of the audience, that we hold off the rest of agenda number 5, go to agenda number 6, begin with part B, move to part A, and then resume the rest of the agenda.
Okay.
I second that, I second that.
All those in favor? Okay. And let's do that.
At previous meetings, Ms. Nicole had expressed concerns regarding Millennium, asked us to look into their plume of apparent smoke coming out, and to find out if we had any concerns in the town of Southbridge regarding the quality of whatever's coming out of their stack. We got the air permit reports, and I asked Anna to go through it, see what situations of concern we have, and if I may, I'd like to defer to Miss Anna again.
Okay.
Sure,
Go
thank
ahead.
you. Right, so Millennium Power Plant does operate under an air permit, or several air permits. And so what I did was I gathered up 2019's reports. I looked at the annual report, the semi-annual report, and then fourth quarter emissions monitoring summary, just to see, kind of what the trend was. The only exceedance that was noted was an exceedance for what they call opacity on November 25th of 2019. So in Millennium, they operate a combined cycle electrical power generation plant, which consists of a combustion turbine generator and an unfired exhaust heat recovery steam generator, which they call the HRSG. They have a cooling tower, water treatment system, and other auxiliary equipment. So from November 2nd to November 25th, the HRSG was down during a maintenance outage. And during that time, it was cleaned. The ammonia salt deposits and rust were cleaned out. And they do the best they can to clean it out, but there was some residual rust reported on the boiler tubes. So when they restarted the engine on the 25th, there was a reddish hue plume leading to the opacity event. So that was the only event that I found in the reports throughout the whole year.
So the concern that are pollutants coming out of that stack? Yes. Much like your drinking water, there are contaminants in it. However, DEP has set standards to say that anything below these levels are acceptable. So, do we have pollution coming out of that stack? Yes. Nothing within the last 2 years, except this one opacity event, that exceeds what DEP allows them to exhaust out of that stack. So, determined by DEP to be acceptable levels.
If I may, I will just note one other issue that I found in the fourth quarter 2019 emission monitoring summary notes. They have a system in there that does continuous emissions monitoring. There were 3 1-hour or less occasions where that system wasn't operating, which can happen if it's undergoing maintenance or it has an outage or something. So there were 3 of those occasions that were reported. So that was the only other thing in the reports that was noteworthy.
What were the dates for those 3 occasions? Do you have those dates?
I could look them up for you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
It was in December, right?
Not all of them, no. It was throughout, well, it was the fourth quarter. Let me see if I can find them real quickly. It's the semi-annual, it's the annual.
You can get back to the board.
Can I get back to you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Just 'cause I'm
No problem.
having a hard time finding
And
it.
again, it was for less than a 1 hour period on each event.
Yeah, that's fine. You can get back to me on that. That's no problem. Thank you.
Anything else?
We can just move on.
Okay. All right. So then we will move on to coronavirus discussion. Andy, would you like to begin?
Yeah, as everybody is well aware, there is a novel coronavirus running around, COVID-19. Came out of China and quickly spread globally. Anna, thank you very much. Quickly spread globally, with specific countries being countries of concern. I think by a speech by President Trump yesterday, that we can recognize that maybe there might be general regions of concern behind specific areas. He shut down, as of tomorrow, flights from Europe into United States. So there is a lot of concern. This is a real thing. There is a lot of over-the-top concern, and there is a whole lot of less than adequate concern. So I put this on the agenda for the board to have an opportunity to discuss coronavirus in general, and specifically what policies the board might want to put in place now at this stage, and maybe consider, should we get a local event. I want to express, there is only one, I believe there's only one even presumptive case in central Massachusetts, Worcester County. It occurred in the Worcester. There have been rumors of a case in Charlton and a case in an exposure in Webster, but nothing confirmed except for the one case in Worcester.
Charlton came back negative.
Charlton came back negative. So I think the board needs to discuss this and be ready to act on should it occur here or locally. And I think the board needs to discuss this and say, what limits do we want to put now, if any? There are some towns that are closing schools. I'm not sure if that's where we should go at this point. Again, it's going to be a board's decision. But I think that we have some susceptible populations out there that we might want to take reasonable steps to protect. So I would open it up to board discussion on where we want to go. I can tell you that I have received calls from the senior center regarding should they hold events with their seniors, and the seniors are a highly susceptible population. I have received calls from the schools asking me what is the recommendation on closing schools, closing school events. And I have talked to Mr. San Angelo and a significant group of partners, the hospital, the Dresser Street Rehab Center, and there are a lot of concerns that are raised. Not necessarily concerns that are raised, but topics that need to be addressed, such as if you don't want to move on the schools, do we want to move on events at the schools? Do we want to go recommendations? Do we want to go mandates? I will express that if we choose to mandate limiting of certain functions, certain events, it would have to be a cooperative operation between the council and the Board of Health. That is under Chapter 111, Section 104, which I believe I emailed to everybody today. But the council chair has expressed that if the board moves in that direction, then he will call an emergency meeting of the council in order to accommodate the realized emergency. I think we have to acknowledge that it may not be at emergency level, but this is a real event and it's something we have to address.
Madam Chairman, would you like to discuss today's meeting and kind of give the board a overview of what happened today?
Sure.
Mind if I come up?
Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone, and
Do you
thank
want me
you.
to shut this?
I'm okay.
I just have, you brought like the age group, so I just
It
put
doesn't
the
bother
age
me, it's
groups
okay.
up. You like the spotlight.
I just kind of want to inform the board of what happened today and the importance, I think, of what happened today. This afternoon, I called a meeting of basically, either way, it's okay. This afternoon, I called a meeting of public officials, of school officials, healthcare officials at the hospital. So to give you an idea of the kinds of people that were there, Ed Moore was there from Harrington Hospital. We had our police chief and fire chief there. Andy was there. Beth was there. The chairman of the town council was at the meeting. We had a person from the rehabilitation center that deals with seniors that was there. The concept was to make sure that everybody was on the same page, that we all had policies and procedures in place for how we would move forward with this issue, and that we were in coordination and all working together, and the network was established among a group of key players in this on this issue. So that's what we did today, and it was interesting to hear what the hospital was doing and what kind of policies and processes they had in place, what the health rehabilitation center was doing. The school system is looking at you guys and the health agent to decide if going forward there's health reasons that might enable them or determine that they should close the school. So they're going to partner with us to deal with that kind of issue. They're concerned as of right now, there's no issues, but as you can imagine, staff is pretty nervous. Even staff in town hall is pretty nervous. So a lot of concern about what could happen and what are the preparations if something does in fact happen. Ed Moore made it very clear that as of right now, they have no confirmed cases that have come through their hospital. So as of right now, things are fine. He's concerned if we close the schools, and parents have to be home, and some of his nurses and doctors have to be home to take care of their children, he could lose a significant amount of his staff right off the bat, right? So it's a major issue. So that was a raised concern. The schools are looking for professional guidance from the healthcare professionals as to what they should do. The healthcare centers looking at coordination between our ambulance corps and the hospital for issues that they might do. So it was really, really great to see that everybody, including the Board of Health, through Beth and the Town Council Chairman, we're all looking at how we could work together going into the future. We've exchanged, I now have a list of all emails. We did minutes of the meeting today to give to all the members. So that network is all open. Everybody's got each other's phone number, those key components. And the expectation is that as things develop, Andy would bring issues to your board and I would bring issues to the Town Council. So a lot of information was exchanged today, and I have to say that the public should feel really good about the coordination that's going on with regard to all the town agencies and departments. Everybody knows what has to be done. Everybody's getting prepared. We looked at issues, for instance, when an ambulance driver comes to your house to help a patient, what kind of protection should they have on when dealing with clients? We talked about the fact that any citizen who thinks they might have coronavirus should call ahead to 911 and let them know that they have this issue so that our emergency workers are prepared. And in fact, the hospital is prepared. We don't want people walking into the emergency room with coronavirus. So we want to be able to make sure that citizens contact people before they show up at wherever the healthcare facility it is. So those were the kind of issues we discussed, and as Andy told you, the chairman of the Town Council is looking forward to working with the Board of Health if we have to send any policies or procedures among the two boards. So just want to assure you that you can feel good that the professionals in this community know what they got to do. We're planning early before something actually happens, which is a good thing. So everybody's on board. We do recognize a couple of things. One is that the senior population, as we know, is at high risk here compared to younger people, right? So we are looking at the senior center and deciding to cancel any kind of group events that might be occurring in our community center. We'll be talking about the library with the same kind of thing. One of the things that we talked about and they wanted you to talk about tonight was community gatherings. Do we want to encourage people or set some kind of process that at least for some point in time we don't want to have chicken dinners or big social type events and how we deal with those as well. So they're looking for guidance from you guys on what we should do for that social context. Myself and Andy today did a public access television show. So we put out a lot of information about what happened at the meeting today and content of how to protect yourself from the virus, that kind of thing. We're also going to use the reverse 911 system. The professionals at Harrington Hospital, their media people, are going to work with Andy and me to develop a message to put through reverse 911. We want to make sure that there's one spokesman for the town, so to speak, so we don't have mixed messages. So Andy's going to work with me, the school system, the hospital, and we all agree that Andy should be the spokesman, being the health agent, that he's the legitimate spokesman. So probably when we do the reverse 911, it'll be Andy's voice talking a message that's clear of what we think that message for the town should be. We don't want to have 5 different people talking in 5 different directions. We're also, among our core group, we're going to decide what information we do set out. Let's say it comes from my office, I'll send it out to all the people in the group so everybody can focus on the same message at the same time. So we're coordinated in whatever message is going out to the public. So I wanted you to know that because it's important that you understand what's going on kind of beneath you guys. And this whole group of people is looking forward to work with you and to take direction and to coordinate with you any future activities. So I kind of wanted to bring you up to speed on that. And I appreciate all the talent we had in the room today. I think Beth would agree that we had all the right people in the room, and the conversation was very reassuring, I guess I would say. And I just kind of wanted to give you that update, and then you guys can kind of take it from there. But we are going to be looking for your advice. I know you guys may work with the State Department of Health. I gave out 3 key websites that are extremely useful. Right now, the CDC obviously is a key one. The State Department of Massachusetts State Department of Public Health is key. And the World Health Organization, she has those email or the website addresses for those.
They're all here.
So those will all be perfect for the citizens to focus on. So I think that those have any information you want around one of those 3 sites, and those are professional sites. Last thing I want to say is we're concerned about, and I want to say it to the television cameras here as well, we're concerned about people's comments on Facebook. We want to make sure that accurate professional information is out on those social media sites and that wrong information is not there. We're already hearing, there was a case in Charlton, there's a case here, there's a case there. and you're scaring people, we want to make sure that we get the facts out and not false information or rumor or hearsay, because that's causing panic that we just don't want to have. So that was the gist of our main thing. Beth, I thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk about it.
Thank you very much.
If there's questions or anything, I'd be happy to take them as I go. Okay?
Is anybody? Thank you.
Yeah.
So, just real quick, so, I don't know, we do have Dr. Stevens here, so I don't know if we want to bring him up to talk about it a little bit, to explain it?
Public meeting, speak to the audience and let them hear what we're saying.
No, I just,
If you think
I'm
as the
just-
chair there's a value in that,
well,
and if he is willing to avail himself to us and to open himself up to questions from the audience, then I would
Just to
encourage
kind
as
of-
the chair, you invite it. If you don't feel that's accurate, then
what?
Monique's got her hand up too.
Monique?
Thank you. I just have a couple questions, or I just want to express some concerns. So, one of my main concerns is, like, the governor came out Tuesday and declared a state of emergency. Now, I understand why he did this, but there's maybe a lot of people in the public that don't understand why he did this. And to some people, a state of emergency is, oh my gosh, there's a real crisis going on, and it makes people worry. So, for me, that should have been addressed right away. Something should have went out, a quick memo or anything, to find the facts about the coronavirus on the website, on the town's website, not through a video. Not everybody watches your videos, I'm sorry. So, number two is the states had something on the Mass Pike and even on the highways, coronavirus. In fact, for the last couple of weeks, we had nothing, knowing. And I understand the media hypes things up and everything, but again, we got a large population in our country that, they hear what the media is saying, they take it verbatim, and all of a sudden there's going to be this huge crisis.
Monique, there's been stuff posted on the website. I have seen it myself.
There has been.
Yes.
Because when I addressed
There had
it
been links to,
Monday
there have
the town manager,
there have been
Oh,
links
it's
to
on
the
the website.
CDC. There have been links to the state. There have been repeatedly,
since the
I have,
coronavirus came out?
yes.
Oh,
Okay.
way back.
we've set
For
up links.
weeks, we have been doing this.
Okay, because when
It's
I
on the Board of
addressed
Health
it-
website.
It's on the Board of
Okay, so
Health
it should be on the
website.
town's
It
website,
has
too.
been on Facebook. We have, Dave Adams has been
I'm not
posting
even on,
things.
I'm not on Facebook
It,
anymore, so I don't know.
I'm letting you know, it has been out there, it has been attached to the town stuff, it has been out there.
It's
Okay.
been
We
on
have been
multiple
posting it.
platforms.
It is
If I
on
can finish,
many platforms.
Thank you for letting me know that, because when I addressed this at the town council meeting Monday night, town manager had no clue if there was anything, if Andy was even in touch with the hospital. And
It has been
that's,
on there.
that's an actual fact.
What you won't
So,
see
I'm
is the
very
signboard.
glad.
You won't see the signboard because it's out of service.
Oh, okay. So maybe there should be a link right on the town's website.
So
to click on.
that's something else that we're going to address, because I actually have a few ideas for some things.
Okay, and
that I want
talking to a
Andy
few
to work on
employees in
tomorrow.
the town hall, they haven't even gotten a memo on anything. So I'm concerned about that. Those are my major concerns, that there should have been.
But there has been stuff put out. I have seen it myself on many occasions, and I have seen it on the Board of Health site. I have seen it.
Okay, so if you get that link up there on the town's website, click here, coronavirus alerts or whatever, they'll click on it. So
Right.
thank you for
Andy.
letting me know that.
I would suggest that if we have a citizen out there, and Monique is acting as a citizen right now, that
I'm
has
acting as
concern,
a citizen and the town council,
that-
because I'm very concerned.
that has concerns regarding our methods of communication, that probably should be one of the topics we discussed tonight, how to improve the communication. Obviously, it's not adequate to get the word out, so we should
Right, I'm
probably
just-
enhance that word if we can.
Right. I'm just,
So,
I just know
So
that it
just
is.
so
I
you
just know
know,
that
not
it is out there.
everybody
Yeah.
has Facebook. I'm not
Yes.
done.
I'm sorry.
So, not everybody has Facebook, not everybody has Instagram, not everybody has Twitter, not everybody has access to a computer, and that's a huge concern. I'm glad Councilor Adams puts things out there on his Facebook, and maybe Councilor Joanne. I personally deactivated my Facebook because I don't stand it anymore. But I mean, not everybody has access to that. Not everybody goes on YouTube to watch the videos. Not everybody has Spectrum cable to see the videos. So that's just a concern.
So that was another thing that we talked about in the meeting today with Dr. Villar, was how to reach the parents and other citizens that don't have access to things.
Yeah, so.
That was going to be addressed.
Again, we discussed the reverse 911 to get out to
Correct.
citizens.
I was gonna
It
say
has been on the
that's-
town
Yes.
Facebook for days, it's been on the town website for days. Part of the issue is we want to make sure that we write messages there, because we don't want different messages than what the state or the federal government is doing, so we're trying to be consistent in our messaging. But we can use all the town resources that we have, but we don't have access to the state TV or anything like that. The state is doing that kind of work, but we're kind of supplementing what the state's doing by putting out information. And Jeff Villar is trying to do it through the school system as well. So all different parts are working in different ways, but I think that, frankly, the concern I'm starting to have is people getting overburdened with just tons of stuff coming at them, and keeping the message as simple and as easy as possible.
Jack?
No, I just want to say, it is very difficult. I did go before our meeting this afternoon with the town manager. I did go to different websites for different towns to see what their messaging was and how readily accessible it is. I was concerned that we didn't have anything on when you opened up that the town Southbridge website. It's great. I did finally find it on the Board of Health website, but it was very difficult to navigate and try to find down to that. So as a learning experience, that when we have something like this, I know there was a red banner right on the Board of Health site about vaping, but the coronavirus wasn't, red bold, which was the hot topic. So if anything, that would be a suggestion that this magnitude, and I know this is a very fast evolving issue, and things are very fluid and changing momentarily, at the moment. So it was very difficult to actually find a link for coronavirus on the website. So I just immediately, if we can just put up some fact data sheets. I did mention to the town manager, the town of Auburn had a very good posting as to what their coronavirus update. It said, hey, look, town officials, and I suggest that, and I think that's what we should do, is to have my suggestion was the unified message, unified command, let's handle this and get through it. It really needs to be concise. I'm an advocate for using the reverse 911, but it can't be lengthy. It has to be just a quick bulletproof, and I know I thank Ed Moore for working with Andy to get quick, concise information. I think the key right now, today's meeting, and to get out to the public is as soon as possible, if not tonight, on a website or something. Hey, look, local officials are working. We're aware of this changing rapidly situation. We're meeting. Board of Health has met. The town government will work as fast as possible, and we're working to ensure that you're safe and everybody's safe, and just keep tuned to additional information. Whatever, I think really from the board, if you're looking at restrictions, and Andy had brought up that it has to come to the town council jointly, we need to know that as soon as possible so that we can post either an emergency meeting as soon as possible to get whatever restrictions you may put out. It's rapidly changing. Schools are canceling momentarily every moment now. There's new notices coming out of the local towns, closing their schools at least for tomorrow. It's very...
What was the reason for the certain ones?
It seems like the majority of schools that have closed that I saw, Webster is closing indefinitely.
Really?
They were more north,
Right.
northeast, because there was a cluster of about
Was it
50.
presumptive cases?
Dudley
Rowan,
Town just closed, Northbridge closed. Webster has announced that they're closed indefinitely.
Okay.
So at least Northbridge and Dudley Town are closed at least for one day. The majority of postings that I'm seeing is that they're closed for deep cleaning. So that's the message
Okay.
they're saying, hey, deep cleaning,
Okay.
this is what we do. But whatever we get out, we have to
Right.
get that message out. And if we need to meet either today or we meet again on Monday, whatever it is to push out information, we
Okay.
will work cooperatively with you. Thank
Town
you.
manager.
Yeah, one other comment that I just want to make clear, because it's going to be a major concern to the general public, is that people who have family members in nursing homes, there's gonna be prohibition on visitation, because they cannot afford for somebody to come in and spread the disease throughout a nursing home where we have a very fragile population. The same is gonna be true at the hospitals, as they're gonna limit severely family members and friends that might wanna visit people. I just wanna encourage the general public who's watching this, that you shouldn't be angry about that, because what they're doing is they're trying to protect your family members in those institutions. There's a lot of concern about where people who are fragile are all together, about having the disease come into that and trying to deal with that. So please be very, work with the hospitals and work with those nursing homes, and understand that right now they have to do this at least for some period of time until we get by this, to protect those people. That's going to be, I think you're going to see that through all the nursing homes in the state of Mass and throughout the country as this issue unfolds.
They're saying the next 30 days,
Yes.
and then reevaluate.
Yes.
Right.
Monique.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I won't be as, like, so just, Dudley Charlton. I only know this because my daughter goes there and I get the emails. They put out there, and I heard there was concern that, like, because we have a high rate of children not being very clean and stuff, you know, Dudley Charlton has that same concern for their free and reduced lunch pupils. And they are, like, they've already talked about putting a plan in place if they have long-term closure of providing meals for their students. So they're already putting plans in place for this. So that's something you may want to think about with the schools.
They've already finished that.
Very good.
Yeah, that's the letter they put out, Dudley Charlton put out behind this. So
I mean,
basically, they canceled.
a couple of things,
They canceled
like on a
school.
caveat for what the manager said, as far as limiting visitors at the healthcare facilities, it has to be also stressed, this is not something new. The H1N1 scare, traumatic, large, and you can please tell me if I'm wrong, Doc. When we had a lot of flu cases, this has been done in the past. And it's done for everybody's protection. So this is flu season, and we've got the added coronavirus on top of it. So we need to get it out on every communication platform there is. And I do feel that we don't use the reverse 911, the Everbridge system enough. And I think, because I was part of it to start that, we have a lot of people that haven't signed up. So this might be also a good opportunity. People, you want information, and if you're not signed up, please go on the website, click on the link, and please sign up to get that information on that Everbridge system. We can probably use that as a...
Actually, me and Andy talked about that in the TV show, that we need to do more to encourage that sign up.
Yes, we did. We had open houses back in the day where I sat there for hours and nobody came to help me sign up. So we have those availabilities, we have to use them all. And I think we are.
Going to
Definitely.
just
Okay, so
Can we-
I think right now, we're, Dr. Stevens, do you,
I'm just here if you have questions about the epidemiology or the bug or how it's treated, how we try to mitigate.
so if you could, if anyone, if you could come up. Dr. Stevens is a physician,
So, I'm,
chief of medicine from,
Just to give you some background, I'm not an employee of the hospital, I'm an employee of Harvard Medical Faculty. That I work for the hospital as the chief of emergency medicine and attending physician in medicine. So we have all of Harvard's information that they put out and the epidemiology behind us. And when we talk about these things, I can't talk about specific cases because there's HIPAA violations that we have to respect patients' privacy. But I can tell you a little bit about the virus, I can tell you a little bit about epidemiology, I can tell you about how we're trying to treat the population. Interestingly, that we closed all the airports and all that. According to medical people, it's a day late and a dollar short because the bug's here already. It's here. Whether we get new bugs, people or not, doesn't matter. It's going to spread within the population as it is. We're expecting the model to be similar to what we saw in Italy 3 weeks ago. We're about that part on the epidemiological curve. We're starting on the upslope. We're not all the way up to the peak. But everything that we're doing right now, and should be in the community also, is to try to make sure we don't have a high peak and that we have a plateau that's
It's right behind you.
So, flattening of the curve is the key. We're not going to stop people from getting the virus at this point. I think they expect 33 or 34% of the population to eventually be positive as time goes by. We'd like those people to be positive over 6 months and not over 4 weeks, because if they're positive over 4 weeks, then we have to decide who gets the ventilator. Because there's only so many resources, not just in Southbridge and not just in Massachusetts, but in the United States. So if the arbitrary number, if I say I have 1,000 ventilators in the United States and I have 2,000 people who need them, how do we allocate those ventilators when people have respiratory failure? So, go ahead. I'm here for questions. So.
Yes, I have a question, if I may. So, thank you, Dr. Stevens. So could you tell us some of the symptoms? And because I've been reading online.
Common cold. Exactly like the cold.
Yeah.
Stuffy nose, mild cough, fever, 102, 103.
So, I mean, like somebody with seasonal allergies, they might dismiss it.
The only difference is typically with seasonal allergies, you don't have a fever.
Right.
So that's the big difference between those. But exactly the same as the flu. And if you look back to the days when we treated MERS and SARS and all those other funky coronaviruses, in fact, the common cold is a coronavirus. So,
Right. So what is the difference between the flu and the coronavirus?
Base pairs. Flu is a DNA virus. Coronavirus is an RNA virus. A little bit different. Transmission is similar, but the coronavirus is more dangerous because there's no inherent immunity in the population for coronavirus 19. With the flu, everybody has had some contact with the flu in their lifetime, so you have a small amount of inherent immunity, just not very good for most of the flus. So coronavirus is completely new. So nobody has immunity. The same way, if you remember the great epidemics of 17th century, nobody had any immunity to things and they just spread to the population.
So what is the incubation period, and if you do get it, what is the recovery period?
Incubation period, typically before you develop symptoms, is about 5 days. Interestingly, not interesting to you guys, but interesting to us, is that in those first 5 days is when you're shedding most of the virus. So if before you even feel ill, then you're already shedding virus. And that's the highest shedding virus period that you have in the like day 4, day 5. After that, the amount of virus you shed drops off until about the 10th day. And then after that, you're not shedding virus, but you still may be ill, and you may still be on a ventilator with pneumonia. But at least you're not contaminating them. So we know that symptoms are minimal. You may shed virus for 5 days before you even feel ill, and you may not even feel that ill. I mean, you may get, some of the reports are people, I got a little stuffy, had an earache, a little sore throat, I didn't think much about it, and they were in a country that does testing just at request, which we do not do, and they got tested and they're positive, which is what happened to who's the actor? Tom Hanks, right. So he just felt bad. He went to a clinic. They said, "Oh yeah, we'll test you," and they tested him. We can't do that here. We can't arbitrarily test anybody.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Another question to follow up on that. So you mentioned, and I've read from several sources that the vast majority of people get relatively minor symptoms. Under what circumstances do you typically see more severe symptoms, and how to deal with them fast?
So men. Number one, what we found out from all the studies in China, it seems that men seem to get it worse than women, so it's good to be a woman in this case. That's a little bit, it's a little colored because most men in China smoke, most women in China do not. So there's an underlying increase in COPD and emphysema in China compared to what we have in the United States. Over the age of 70, the mortality is incredibly high. Is it back there?
Yeah.
It's right from you.
Sorry. But there's deaths earlier than that. No deaths before the age of 9 we found so far. So children seem to be not affected as much, but they may be asymptomatic carriers, which is the problem with schools. So I mean, these are kind of the big things. Is there any treatment? No. Supportive measures, artificial ventilation, low flow oxygen, no steroids, no antibiotics, no antivirals, no magic pills. You just have to support the patients while they shed virus. We've been working on this at Harrington and at BI now for 3 or 4 weeks. So as we've been tracking it as it's come across the world, we've been keeping an eye on what's happening and how novel it is and how much it's going to end up being here. So we are very concerned from an epidemiological point of view that the next 10 days are going to tell us what the numbers are going to really be. So hopefully we don't get the plume that everybody's predicting and that the curve flattens out and we can maintain a kind of stable treatment of the whole population. Yes.
Do you feel that in Bergamo that it has peaked, that it's at a peak, and now we're like a month?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's claiming a peak anywhere yet. I think there's a lot of people saying, well, the curve is starting to slow down a little bit, or the top is flattening out, but I don't think anybody really has a feeling that everything's dropping off.
There's a testing problem also. We haven't tested only 11,000 people.
Yeah, a little bit about the testing. The test is rather complicated. It's a reverse transcriptase PCR test, which essentially means all kind of gobbledygook words, but it's not a single step. Put 2 drops of the red dye and 2 drops of the green dye, shake it up, and it turns purple, and it's positive or negative. So it's not as easy as some, and there are tests in the lab that we do that are just that way. This is not one of them. This is one that we have to tag a segment of virus genome with a fluorescent dye and then look at it on a gel. So it's not easy. I'm sorry?
To follow up on that,
Is it like a PCR?
Yeah, it's a PCR.
It's a PCR.
Right.
Okay.
to follow up on that, because I've been reading some stuff online talking about how South Korea is doing drive-through testing that takes 10 minutes. Our testing takes 24 to 48 minutes.
Our testing process through the state takes 48 hours or longer.
Right.
Because there's a travel time, there's cataloging and all that, but about 24 hours, yes.
So are they doing something different?
They're doing 20,000 a day.
Exactly.
South Korea is doing 20,000 a day.
And we have the opportunity to benefit from their research, but our State Department decided they didn't want us to use their technology. They wanted to develop it in-house.
So just to kind of and talk to Edmore, who's the head of the hospital. Right now, they're sending out all the tests to be checked out someplace else at some other lab. The Harrington Hospital right now is currently working on doing the testing themselves and getting state approval so they can do their own tests so they don't have to go out for it, which will considerably speed up the time. So that is something, they have most of the equipment, he tells me. They may need some additional things, but they feel that this can be done right away, and if they get the state to approve it quickly, it may not be very long before Harrington can do its own test.
So the test that we have is going to be possible, and hopefully it should be available. We're hoping the first week in April. I'm not sure of the exact date. I don't think anybody knows the exact date. How long the process of the test is going to be that we use or that we adopt, how long that's going to be, we're not sure. Just by taking the travel out of it, it'll be easier. But the thing you got to keep in mind, we still have to ask the state's permission. Well, no, up until today we didn't. So today we don't have to ask the state's permission any longer to do the test, but they still have to meet criteria for the test. Criteria is the same as it has been from the beginning. If you travel to an indigenous area, one of the 5 places that are in high populations of infected people. I don't necessarily agree with that method, But that's what DPH is holding us to at this point.
So just a comment to that, right? And that's one of the discussions we had in our meeting today, is that, in the beginning of this virus as it came in, that was a really good thing because it was coming in from out of the country.
Right.
But as the longer the disease is here, it's going to spread among people that live here.
Right.
And the countries are no longer going to be
It's
important
irrelevant
whatsoever.
at this point.
Exactly. They're irrelevant. And then that's part of the process that we're going through, that every day we expect that to change from the state, the direction from the state to change. So every day I wake up in the morning and I look at the DPH requirements that came out last night or this morning, and it changes it. So yes, eventually it's going to be, if the patient looks sick, and they could be sick, and they may have had some contact somewhere in a high volume target area, then we probably should do the test. But that's the next process. Yes.
So one more thing. So I did just receive another call from the school, and there is a parent that is suspected of having the virus, and that's why they canceled school for tomorrow. And there's a meeting with the commissioner and everything tomorrow. So how many false cases do you suspect?
So.
And can they be false positive or false negative?
So, yes, they can be both false positive and false negative. The correct answer is nobody knows. And I like to say that we know that 30% is going to be false positive, 20% is going to be false negative. The sensitivity is high, but the specificity isn't. So nobody can tell you any of that information right now because nobody has it. We haven't been doing the test long enough to know what the value of the test is in a controlled population, because there are no controlled populations. So that's the problem. The best guess from other coronavirus testing that we do in animals, for animal disease, remember there's 7 other coronaviruses that affect humans, but there's a bunch that affect cows and sheep and goats and pigs and cats. We know that they're generally pretty specific, or pretty sensitive, but they may not be as specific if you want to. In other words, they're going to pick up most of the disease in a diseased person. So that's specificity, or sensitivity, I'm sorry, and specificity is, but will they pick up other viruses too? So we look, when we're testing any test modality, we look at those 2 things, specificity and sensitivity. I'll give you an example. We do a test with blood clots in people's lungs that is really sensitive. So if you have a blood clot in your lungs and I do this blood test, it's going to be 100% correct every time for a blood clot. But it may be falsely positive. It's going to pick up every blood clot that you have, but it may be positive even if you don't have a blood clot. So it's very sensitive, but not very specific. So that's kind of a little primer on the difference. Protection isn't, I'm sorry.
I've been a nurse for 62 years.
God
and
bless
we've
you.
gone through SARS
And you haven't
God
pulled all
bless
your hair out.
And I still
Take psych meds.
we've
so
gone
that
through, all these things and had, precautions and
Right.
et cetera. I have never seen the level of fear. And what is making the difference this time?
I think the rapid spread is the thing that what seems to me scares most people.
Yeah.
I started practicing medicine so long ago, I hate to say how long ago it was, when there was really no HIV, there was no description of HIV. It was described in textbooks as bathhouse-related immune deficiency syndrome. That was my first medicine textbook, one paragraph, Harrison's Internal Medicine, that much, the whole thing. And then it turned into this giant epidemic that went around the world. But having said that, people weren't as afraid because there were certain risk behaviors that if you eliminated them from your life, then you were pretty low risk of ever getting AIDS, as long as you didn't participate in any of the risk behaviors. Having said that, when you go to the flus, the novel flus, like H1N1 you mentioned earlier, people get get the infection the same way you get it here, and the disease and the death from it you don't see, but it's incredibly high. And that's been an epidemic after epidemic. So I guess the Spanish flu was the highest, right? Neither you nor I practiced then. But H1N1, SARS, MERS, Ebola. Essentially, we avoid Ebola was the scariest thing I could imagine. And we were very happy that it never kind of jumped to our shores. I think there was a couple of cases that were rare, but nothing that ever really caught up and had a population. So, but this one, the mortality rate's high. It's 10 times higher than flu. So
It is?
10 times, yeah. Mortality rate for influenza is 0.1.
So it's right behind you if you want to.
Oh, is it back there? I'm sorry.
No, the comparison between the two.
Oh.
Well, your head's in the way.
Oh, sorry.
But the flu on the left and the corona on the right.
And that's the thing people don't realize.
So, and again, I think because the numbers that we got from China are suspect, so we're not really sure what the real mortality rate is for this disease, that we really can't come to grips with their numbers because I'm not sure that they're really giving us what we want. I think we'll have better idea from Italy as time goes by. But we're starting to think it's going to be around 0.6% when all is said and done. But still, that's 6 times higher than influenza. So gives you some idea of the depth of it. And again, the big step is, and I don't get to decide for different hospitals how they do things, but a lot of nursing homes are closing their doors to visitors, period. I don't think you can get into a nursing home in Washington State, even to visit Grammy. I mean, God forbid should you not make a visit, but you know what? If it keeps her from getting COVID-19, then I think it's not unreasonable.
To follow up on that, obviously the first notable outbreak was in the nursing home in Washington, in New York. On the flip side, how do we deal with individual seniors within the community?
I think the recommendation from most of the websites, the CDC and WHO, are stay home. Just stay home.
To that end, Gus, our senior center is canceling all kinds of events now. So we're doing that to protect citizens now. We're not doing anything that encompasses any kind of 30, 40 plus meeting. All that's kind of fading away for now, at least until we find out that things turn around and the risk is dissipating.
Well, I was thinking that because I'm also a Muslim listener. And Kathy was here and she runs the Muslim.
Yeah, she left me.
That's one reason why I brought it up, because some of our clients are very much, some of them are very much on their own.
Right.
You know, some of them don't have much family, or some do. And that's kind of one of those issues, is that, some of them have been sick in recent times and some of them haven't. Right. So it's hard to tell whether.
So I mean, from my personal point of view, I recommend PPAC or PPOD have delivery of your food.
Not everybody can afford
home.
that.
Right. I don't know if there's a charge. Amazon, whatever delivery.
But they would, in the same circumstances, it would still be a delivery, somebody delivering it.
Right, but it's 6
But you can leave it at the door.
6 feet is what you need. So if they leave it on your front door, then something.
Limited contact. Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Or a couple of questions? There's a lot of, I know you will. There's a lot of, and I think what the young lady said is information overload compared to years ago.
Oh, sure.
There is a lot of terminology out there.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things, like Monique said, there's a suspected case. Well, there's risk analysis that goes on. On the testing, like you're talking about the testing, is it still true? And what has changed from everything that you've heard, that the state has done testing and it's a presumptive positive, but it has to go to CDC to be confirmed?
Yes.
So, I'm assuming from my other career that you can get positives on a scale of things. Now, this is sent to the CDC to be more fine-tuned. Is it a positive on COVID-19?
Okay.
Or you might have had the false positive that was attributed to another strain of virus.
Right.
Is that,
Right, so there's 3 levels that we're working under now, it's a little confusing. So there's patients under investigation. So those are patients that come in the door and say, I just came from Rome, I had a wonderful time, but now I have a fever to 103 and a cough. So they come into the ED, as they come in the front door, they're usually met by security or somebody else, and they say, what are you here for? And they say, I have a fever and a cough, and security steps back 3 steps and hands them a mask. I mean, literally,
that's a precaution?
That's a precaution.
Absolutely.
So, so we're trying to identify people when they come out the door. So that would, now the triage nurse in full gown and mask will come out and meet that patient, put the patient in the isolation room, and then start doing testing. So the first test, the first thing we do is, well, we used to call the state, we don't do that anymore. We'll do the viral panel, set it aside to send to the state. If the patient is not ill, doesn't have any respiratory distress, does not need to be admitted to the hospital, it just has symptoms of a cold or a flu or Corona-19, then they go home. They go home with quarantine instructions, and to keep, anybody who's first degree contacts need to stay home. They shouldn't go to school, they shouldn't go to the grocery store, that they're home. So now when we get the test back, which is anywhere from 72 to 98 hours later, wondering if there's a weekend involved, if it was a Friday that was sent out, the state's not open on the weekend, so they pick it up Mondays, and I have 3 days from there instead of
Not yet. Not yet.
So,
The anthrax thing, they did open 24/7.
oh, did they really?
Yes, they
Yeah.
did.
So-
Jamaica Plain? Yes.
So
Hopefully they will this one, because it should be.
right.
They should be.
So once that test comes back from the state, if it's positive from the state, then they're considered to be presumptively positive.
Okay.
So that kicks in the whole other thing. Are you still sick? You need to stay at home. They change your designation. The state starts looking for other contacts that they may have had impact with after that time or before they came in originally. Then that test goes to the CDC, and then the CDC says it's positive or negative. If it's positive, then the CDC does their thing, and by then 14 days are up, and either you've gotten worse or you've stayed the same, or you've gotten better. Oh, I'm sorry.
So I just have one follow-up to that. When the patient from Rome walks into the door and the security guard meets them, and he steps back 3 feet, and then she's or he is put into isolated room, who disinfects the area that patient was in?
Where they walked, is they're outside at that point, coming in the door. We know that incidental contact, that when you're greater than 6 feet away, is very low risk. So when they go in and they get put in a room, there's a normal housekeeping effort, obviously, but nobody is running around. We know certain things about the virus. If you put the mask on them coming in the door, then they're not spreading droplets all over the place. That's the most important thing about the mask, is that you got to get it on the patient, because that stops the droplets. Remember, N95s and masks don't stop viruses from coming this way. The virus is too small, it goes right through the mask. But it's not airborne, it's droplet borne. So the mask will catch drops of spittle and that kind of stuff from getting into your face, and then you're rubbing your face and rubbing your eyes. That's, I'm sorry, did I answer?
Just one more. How long does the virus survive?
They claim in a dry environment about 6 hours.
Out of the host?
Out of the host, right. Okay. Like HIV doesn't survive on a tabletop, but it has to be dry.
Right.
There's some study just recently being done now that they think that in aerosol dust that's moist, that it may last as long as 3 hours. Although I don't think anybody knows that for sure yet.
Thank you.
Jack?
Question. Somebody, we got people that are overseas, gonna fly home.
Right. Yes.
Europe, country like that. they're coming home, they arrive back Friday, they're supposed to report to work on Monday. What precautions to alleviate concerns of the fellow employees? What's the recommendation for it? Do they stay home and wait 14 days? Do they go to work? I mean, what, you know, I mean, because I think it's just like anything else. I could be out working, come in contact with somebody that may have it. I don't know. You know, is that fear-based reality, or you just go about your regular life and try to just avoid it and use precautions of hand washing and keeping diligent?
Herein lies the problem. So if you were in London, I don't know how many cases they had, 100 or something, and you didn't come in contact with anybody, and you come back and you don't have any symptoms, I don't think anybody would recommend that you don't go back to work. If you were in Rome, same person, different place, where they're on the spike of their epidemic, then I think a lot of people, well, I'll tell you what my group does at Harvard.
Okay.
They say, if you were in London, you need to be out 14 days. Just
Rome.
So if you were in Italy, 14 days. If you were in
Paris?
Seoul, South Korea, 14 days.
Anything about Paris?
Not Paris yet.
There's not a problem yet?
Not as far as I know. Italy, yes. I don't think, I'm not sure about London at the moment, but it changes almost every day. In Japan, 14 days. So
Where are
that's
you going?
Iran, 14 days.
You know, the issue there is that the fear factor right now, regardless if you came from Paris or Italy or you came from some other country that doesn't have it, the fear factor is the issue right now.
Right.
It's freaking everybody out.
It's information
That's
overload.
what it is.
Absolutely.
Well, what's going to happen next week, and I'll just give you a heads up, is all of those restrictions are going to disappear with us doing testing. And we'll be able to test everybody on demand.
But
So-
will it still,
Go ahead.
that's my key. All the rules go away and common sense prevails and you're gonna be able to do the testing.
Right.
Is it still gonna be presumptive? Does it still have to go to the Jamaica Plains to be presumptive, or is there a bigger test that in your one-stop shop,
Right.
you can make this, your organization can make the decision, 14 days, stay away?
Whenever
Or
you're,
does it still
if you're
have to go through the
presumptive,
loops?
if you're still presumptive,
Yep.
then you're going to have to be quarantined. If we do the test, you have to be quarantined.
Okay.
If we don't do the test, then you don't have to be quarantined, but, you know.
Well, if you don't do the test,
So
you
it's
don't
because
know.
you're not presuming.
Right.
There's no risk. You didn't
Right.
seem to have an apparent
Right,
risk.
it's all semantics.
Yes.
The bottom line is it's going to be so prevalent in the population. I'll give you an example. I think we've done in the United States 1,100 and so tests so far. And they do, or 10,100, I can't remember the exact number, but they do that in a day in Korea.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to ramp up to the point that we can test everybody here who's asymptomatic.
And when they
not-
test more,
Right.
it's gonna go up,
Well,
because you tested.
well, yes, so the number's going to go out to test.
Well, the numbers are gonna go up anyway.
Because you have more information.
Right.
Jack.
So Beth, great information, Doc. I'm glad it came.
Okay.
I'm glad you're here tonight because it gave a lot of information for the public too. I guess fast forward now, so we get a lot of information on this, due diligence. What are we gonna do as a town? Are we gonna stay the course over the weekend to say, hey, look, okay, we know the hospital is ramping up. We had that meeting.
Right.
We know our fire police and our town officials are on board. Schools are gonna do what they're gonna do, you know, whatever. And I know they have a conference call tomorrow. The schools do. Municipal officials have a conference call if we choose to through the MMA, have a conference call tomorrow. You know, what is the direction of the Board of Health right now
Right.
to, hey, public, town officials are on top of this, senior activities have been closed, do what other towns have done, like sports have been canceled and all that, and we're on top of it, we're working together, and if need be, we have emergency meetings or whatever tomorrow or Saturday, if need be, if something rapidly changes. I guess that's what I'm looking at, next steps, because we have a lot of information.
Right.
But what do we want to do?
So I mean,
Yeah.
for you guys, what, thank you. What do you look, oh, thank you.
Oh, there's the
Well, I'll just, we've been, my class and I, we've been working on this, my environmental class for a better part of a week. And one of the things that just becomes really, really, really apparent, is cutting through the whole thing is what Dr. Stevens said, is just flattening the curve. I mean, whatever we can do to reduce the spread, and that means that any kind of event that kids going off-site, going to another school should be canceled. Shouldn't be happening. They shouldn't be doing. This is my opinion. To flatten the curve is those gatherings, certainly with other people from other communities, should definitely we should curtail it. Canceling the school, somebody just gave me a quick example. Imagine one school-aged kid. Well, if their parents is a police officer, that person has to stay home now to watch after that kid. That means certain events aren't covered. So we may solve some problems with telling kids all to stay home, but I think we create problems also that may be, in a sense, undo a thing. So I would not rush to cancel. I mean, some districts are canceling school. I would not rush to cancel school because I do think we have to limit our movement of people and the gathering of people wherever we can in this community. Whatever that means is. So that's my.
So I think that Dr. Ballard brought up a really good point as far today at our meeting, Andy, as far as that goes with canceling school. And I believe what was his statement?
That canceling school potentially may cause more harm to the children than good. You take away the availability of meals. We know a lot of the children in this town, that house, we face facts. The town is over 30% on some kind of assistance. So the available food may be the food at school. You remove the child from a comfortable environment at this time of year, guaranteed heat, and an environment that they are used to being in. And you remove them from psychological assistance should they need it. So we may be, I'm not even going to say saving the health, because we may be removing them from a potentially health concerning area, but the damage we do to them by removing them from the rest of it could be additional damage.
So I mean, I'm not inclined to be in a big rush to cancel school. I think that, we don't have any presumptive cases. I think that's kind of, I think that's a little overboard. There's, I think that's crazy, honestly. I mean, I know that sounds terrible, but
I
think it's
agree.
overboard. I think it's overboard. I think that it's just too much.
I think what I hear the most is information, and how do we get the information out to our citizens, not to inundate them, not to cause hysteria, but to make it easy for them to understand what's going on, what we're doing, and what measures we have in place in the event of. And I don't think canceling school. I agree with you at this point. What?
One thing that when you were talking about the issue of events, has anybody talked about hotel? Do they have any events coming up?
I think that
It's a good question.
I think,
Didn't,
we did talk.
didn't we talk about this earlier
We did talk
today?
about today
That they had canceled
about churches.
Yeah.
What a church is doing.
Right, and a lot
Laura
of-
actually brought it up from the hospital was, maybe reach out to, does the host have a big event that there's a wedding or a convention of some sort, and just reach out to see what their thoughts are.
Right. Because
the churches or what they're doing, I know
a lot of
the
the
diocese has put out some guidance to the church staff, because my wife works for a church, guidance to what they need to do in the church to sanitize and make sure that they're on top of things. So I think the best case is, like you said, try to lessen the exposure of large gatherings, but folks, go about your life, but just be diligent, and like you said, Tony, to get the information out, and that's the one unified message I think we have to come up with.
I
and
think
the hospital to get that through, and see where we go in a day or so. I do commend Dr. Villar for, he was very adamant that schools will wait for guidance from the schools and not, jump ship unless the state says something differently.
Right.
Let's stay the
Right, or
course and
something,
just
or else,
stay.
or something else changes,
Yeah.
it just.
So let's
come
be
in.
clear here, right? And just so everyone understands, the situation is happening, changes day to day.
Oh, absolutely, it's a fluid
So whatever we're
situation.
thinking right now
Right.
may change rapidly, and if we see those kind of changes, I'll be calling meetings of all the different people
Right.
to coordinate and take our next steps. If we feel there's any threats in the schools, cases happen or something, there'll be a lot of quick decisions made, all the right
Yes.
people will come together and we'll make those decisions. So I agree that we should do anything now, but we will look at this on a day-by-day basis and make decisions as it needs to protect the public health. Whatever those decisions are, people should understand this is very, very fluid at this time, and things can happen literally in hours, so
So the
we will...
schools still having the extracurricular activities, or did they cancel it?
What's going on right now is the schools are status quo, looking for guidance from Mass DPH and this board
Well,
here.
I do believe though, when it comes to athletics, they've canceled that.
I think they
So,
canceled the athletics.
The after-school
I
functions and
think the athletics
gatherings.
though was canceled by the governing body of.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
of
that's right,
athletics.
yeah, I think that's.
So I do know that they've canceled all, like, outdoor sports right now, indoor sports and things like that, and the majority of them have canceled, so.
Maureen, are they-
That's been like a
And I think that's,
additional, I think that probably tomorrow when the superintendents have their call, they'll probably have more guidance about what schools are gonna do for extracurricular activities, I would imagine, right, Maureen?
Yes, and field trips are being looked at on a case-by-case basis. We don't have any international field trips this year.
But I'm not even thinking international. I mean, to lower the curve, you have to lower your exposure. Even going to the next town, that increases. That increases. So I'm not thinking international, but a trip to anywhere increases that exposure.
The field trips that are coming up most quickly have already been canceled. So the trip to the St. Patrick's Day Parade and things like that.
Right.
The other field trips we have planned are for the end of April, so we'll look at.
Oh, so we have time to get in front of that.
I think the message should go out to
Graduation's not till June.
everything in town and all the organizations to just be smart, limit your exposure, limit your contact with people. I agree with not canceling school, because one of the key things that we learned through the tornado is let's get people back to normalcy and don't take them away, and I agree, we'll do more harm. If there's a presumptive case at one school, doesn't mean we have to close the whole district, take it case by case. But the information should go out, have your plans. Mr. President, you're gonna have a fundraiser, have your plans, at the club.
I do want to stress
Be
one thing,
smart.
right? Right now, as you say, there's no cases here, right?
So
Thank
far.
God, right? So there may be small groupings of people and different things that happen. We need to stress again that senior citizens, anyone who has any kind of illness, older
Well,
than
there
nature,
should
should
all-
avoid
there
any
should all-
kind
Definitely.
of
I think
groupings
any senior
whatsoever.
citizen,
The
The
compromise-
risk is much higher there.
The
so
compromised
anyone who's feeling ill
population,
should stay home.
it should be addressed
stay
that,
home.
So how is that
don't go to church,
information?
watch it on TV.
How is that information going to be getting
Yes.
out to the whole community?
So a variety of ways. Obviously, the federal and state government are putting tons of information out there right now, so that's all coming through them. And they have the dollars, they're putting it through TV, they're putting it through other sources. From a local level, what we've talked about is using the reverse 911 to get a bunch of information, to use all of our websites among the different organizations that were involved in today's meeting, to coordinate that messaging through myself and Andy, and, with the school system, to coordinate the messaging, where we'd all use our mutual Facebook page on their websites or whatever it is. So, the town is somewhat limited because we don't have access. I mean, we can use the local newspapers and stuff to the what they give us, but we don't have money to go on TV or do that stuff. That will all handle through the federal and state government. Now, events is, like for instance, we know that there's going to be a big poker tournament at the Italian Club soon, right? That's something that we should contact them and talk to them if that really event should be going forward. There's a variety of different Italian dinners out there, Irish dinners. Those are things where I think the message is going to get to those people that those kind of events should be canceled or postponed at least temporarily. And that's something that we should all we need to spread that message.
I agree.
Hang on
Just one thing.
Wait.
Just one quick thing. I think other than just the elderly population you have to worry about, is you have to worry about the required forces that you have, that you employ in the town. So for the hospital group and our medical group, we don't allow any functions greater than 20 people anywhere. So my staff meetings, my business meetings, all that are all canceled. We're doing everything on video conference, everything by phone. Your police, your fire department, your EMS, they really have to use those same guidelines because you can't afford to lose 5 firemen because they all attended the same meeting or the same poker tournament and a guy was exposed.
Which is, frankly, one of the issues that we clearly have to look at here is the fire department, the ambulance guys have the equipment they need to go in and do this. Right now, we're coming to a clear understanding the police department don't have that kind of equipment.
Right, and I think Shane.
So we're coordinating and talking
about
between Shane, the police, and the hospital about what we can do. Because Shane's response was, well, we're gonna step back in a lot of these events and stuff.
Sometimes they
The
can't.
police can't step back.
Yeah,
Right.
sometimes
So
you
we
can't.
need to find a way to get them the necessary equipment quickly. So that conversation
Right.
is already going between police and fire and the hospital. But that I think is a weakness we have right now. The police department is not set up for that kind of emergency equipment. So we'll deal with that as quick as possible.
Just quickly, we have the single best way of getting communication out, and that's the students. We can get information to the students that can get that information home. You know,
And that's what
whatever,
we discussed, and that's what we discussed
whatever,
with
like,
Dr.
thing
Villar this morning
is
too.
That's a great
That's only
way. It
one.
goes
Right.
well. A lot of these kids are all connected. You know, so the whole thing that you said
That's
about
only one
elderly is
Even the
stressed that
rehabilitation
much.
center, when we talked to the rehabilitation center today, the concern was they have enough mass and things for the next 2 weeks or something. Concern is that everybody's looking for this equipment, and after 2 weeks when they run out, they're gonna have a hard time getting it. So, again, the fire department is talking with the rehabilitation center about, okay, how do we make sure that you get the mass and the equipment you need? So that's really gonna be a lot of working together, but there's going to be huge demand on resources from all sources. So it's not gonna be easy for at least some period of time to get those resources until the federal government gets the manufacturers and everybody to gear all this up. So that's a problem now. You've heard it.
But the
Testers are slow. The
information-
same is true with emergency equipment.
But the information can be about, like what you said about making sure the elderly don't come in contact. That information.
We gotta
should
get that out as much.
Get that sent out through this, I mean, one way is through the students and about travel.
So your communication plan, is it gonna be staggered, or are you gonna throw everything out so you can have multi,
So again, we want to make sure that the message is consistent among all the different players, so we don't want everybody putting out different information.
Right.
So that's something that me, Andy, and the hospital and they're going to kind of coordinate as to the messaging of it. But once we determine what that message will be on a local level, we're going to send out that message to all the different organizations, be it the hospital, be it the nursing home, be it whatever, and know that everybody knows what's going out, and then they can ship that information out as well.
And it has to go by every platform. So you don't hear it, he didn't, I.
Yeah.
well, and then our website
Right, I
and the
agree.
town
And that's
website.
what too, as we
will be-
learn more, we may adapt and change. This is gonna be an ever adapting, changing environment.
Right.
If, I may think today this is one way I wanna do it, tomorrow the state may tell me something, I may have another way of doing it. So we're gonna have to adapt to the environment we're in and to the changes that we need to do as this goes along. So we can only tell you what our plan is at this moment, and we wanna keep improving that plan as we go along, and we'll make those changes as necessary to make sure we do the best job we can.
The one thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna consider on the town side is, over the weekend, if, we see a spike in some stuff, is to eliminate, say, subcommittee meetings for activity, to eliminate the number of times people are out at group meetings, that if there's action that we have to take, and rather than have a subcommittee meeting with a group of people and then bring it to a town council meeting, do we just bring everything to a general meeting during this period of time to get whatever business we have to do, limit the amount of time that we have exposure with groups in town. So that's one thing that we're gonna look at to see about moving forward. And
Even
perhaps-
in a bigger room now.
Right, well, that's the thing,
Well,
instead of having a meeting like now, we have 20 people in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Rather
And
than
like
have a
this is- and like
subcommittee-
this is it.
worse
Rather
than
than have a
upstairs.
subcommittee
Yeah.
meeting, we would have our general meeting upstairs, which is a large meeting room, and just
Spread out.
space it out and do that as well, so.
Even the conference we did today among all players, we're gonna start doing that by phone. So I'm gonna set up, I have a phone conferencing call, instead of bringing all these officials, because God forbid we want them in the same room, we'll have a conferencing call and bring everybody together and do it by phone as well. There's no need to meet in person when we can discuss it through a phone conferencing call.
So just before I depart, you don't need anything from the town council right now? You're not making any restrictions or anything like that?
I don't think so. I feel like for me, at least at this point, I think social distancing, no groups larger than 20, older people, sick people stay home.
Information.
Information, wash your hands. I feel like, at least for right now, I feel like that's
Concerned, but don't panic.
And what the
Exactly.
Exactly. All parties are working together and
You
watching.
referenced, and I'm sorry I didn't get a word in before Monique left, the question on the table was, how are we going to get the word out? And Monique expressed specifically that we're not getting the word to her. So I would have liked the opportunity for her to tell us what would work for her and the rest of the audience
Well,
to
with all
say.
due respect, Andy.
The rest of the audience.
With all due respect, Andy, I think her point is, there is nothing on their website, AMSIC going to and trying to find coronavirus on a Board of Health page that took me 10 steps to get to,
that's
as opposed to opening it up the
So it
town
needs to be on the homepage.
town website.
Every event the Board of Health throws, I get a phone call within 3 days after the event to say, how do I get rid of this hazardous waste? And I say, well, you just missed it. And they say, well, where'd you advertise
Well,
that?
listen, with all due respect,
if I may finish. Getting the word out is always a hardship and is always best for us to use the venues we have, but also to ask the people what works for you. There's some people who aren't on Facebook and aren't on computers. We need to know what works to get that word out for the people who are receiving the word. So I think to this audience here today, to Monique in particular, because she admitted she doesn't use Facebook, doesn't use this, I recognize we have to improve the communication we use now. So I will get everything onto the main page, but is there other venues that work for the audience?
So her point was, respectfully, was I went to the website and there was absolutely nothing that I could find readily available.
Right.
Same as myself today. When
I couldn't find it.
When I went to the website
They shouldn't have to dig for it.
and had to fish for it.
We'll work it.
My message today at this meeting was that we have a unified message. That message should already be drafted tonight, and I don't know if it is, because I'm not hearing that message has been drafted tonight through Harrington Hospital and this. I give respect to you that it's on the agenda tonight, and that was the point. What direction do we have to do? It's simply that, just like I said, Town of Auburn, very simple. Hey folks, we have identified this as an issue. The town officials have met. This is what the steps are going to be doing. We will have further information. Here's links to different sites. It was right up on the front page that said, hey, this is what we're doing. That's all I'm asking right now tonight, that the town of Southbridge have something like that that says, folks, here's what we're doing. More information. Go to these sites. We will develop more information. The reverse 911, great idea, but again, Roland, has to be short and concise.
But there's
It can't be very
everything you
long.
just said, though, in all due respect, all that verbiage you just said is put out in the Everbridge system on a snow emergency.
No, I know, but that's
So
what I'm
you
saying.
can put things on.
So I think we can
And you
agree.
can get it by
We can agree. We need to do a better job
do a better job.
getting the information out.
absolutely.
You shouldn't have to click 10 times
To get to that.
for
and
this
I
particular
agree.
issue, which I think.
All I'm saying is
Yep.
I have opened up my phone many times and I have found stuff. So maybe I'm lucky. I don't know.
Well, I think for yourself, you may be more versed in, say, where
And
different things in the town
maybe
things.
that's it.
But-
Maybe that's it.
but I'm just
I
saying-
don't know.
But
I feel like every time I
Can
open Facebook, I'm finding more and more
Can
stuff.
we move on?
So-
Because I
so
absolutely.
I agree.
And
We're
we
just gonna
need to
move
move
on here.
on from this about,
Yeah.
yeah,
I just need
mistakes
to know-
were made. And
All
yeah.
right.
I just need to know from the town council site, do you need anything from the town council this evening or
At this
meeting?
moment, I don't believe we do. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll gladly work with your board. Whatever we have to do night, day, just get a call to us and we will work.
Andy.
Before Jack leaves, you mentioned that we want to limit meetings and groupings to whatever.
Well, I think that that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Is it going to be advisory or are we going to mandate it?
Well, no,
Because
I think
if
it's
we
just
mandate it, we
advisory.
need
I think
counsel.
advisory at this point.
I would agree.
Yes.
I think
Everything is
advisory.
gonna
at
be
this point.
right.
I don't.
Until more we could change it tomorrow.
Right.
I just,
Right. I
before
think
Jack leaves, I
advisory
want to
at
make
this
sure
point.
everything
Absolutely. I
here,
think we're all in
recommendations can come out of this board without council support.
I mean, that's
Mandates-
just my
mandates and
thoughts. If you
restrictions
guys have
cannot-
anything else
Agreed.
to add.
Agreed.
I think
It's
everybody
all
agrees.
just, hey, here's some information.
Yeah.
This is how you, but it's, hey,
Maureen.
I have a question. Why don't we use that board on the? I know that one of them is broken.
We
that
only
We
have
board,
only have one
We
and
only
it's
have
out of
one.
but
only-
I saw one on East Main Street.
That is the construction companies. We have no
That's not
control
ours.
over that.
Okay, well,
We
why
only
don't
got
we
one
get that
allotted
one
to us.
fixed?
Because
It's not.
it's all
Good
about the
idea.
money, and you're not gonna take a 20-year-old car and put $5,000 into it. We have priorities, we have to set our priorities.
hey, Pat, how about the YMCA?
And you know something?
Are they
My
doing
parents,
anything? Are they?
being 89 and 90, 96,
You know what?
aren't gonna see that. There's better venues to get more of the population.
Well, hey, right. It's all new to us right now, so, all right.
I sent,
What's that?
How fast a turnaround time would it take to put something on a billboard?
On a billboard?
I'm sorry, what's your?
Turnaround time to get something on a billboard?
So billboard, you have to develop the message of the
Yes.
billboard.
Right.
First they have to see if there's availability of the billboard or not anyway. But there's a cost of probably, I think we did about $3,500 for a month of the billboard. You have to draft the message.
So what I had,
So, I mean,
what I passed
I
on
would
to
say
you
it's
guys
probably gonna
was
take
something
you a
that I
month
stole from
if there's a
Dudley.
billboard available.
But there's something,
And I just thought it
there's
was a great
something we
idea.
could do.
And I thought it was a good way to just
Cooperation.
get all the messaging in one place. And I thought
Very
we could
small
put in our own
verbiages.
and just,
I like
The electronic
that
boards
way it
of
was just
private
kind of cut and
places,
dry. There you
like
go.
the package
Not
stores
reinventing the wheel.
and stuff,
Yes.
that if they, but
I'm
that
gonna
would be
send- I'm
only
gonna
if
send
they
you what
wanted to
Doug
work.
and send
They
out.
would
It's
have to
exactly
work
what
with
we're
us.
asking.
But that,
Hey guys, just understand,
Did I send it to you?
this is all,
right,
Because it just,
this is all pretty new, right? This is really all new, and it hasn't even been a confirmed issue here. We are working on the communication message. This is kind of a new process in this way. We are working on that, we're gonna be developing it, it's gonna be fluid. So you're gonna see a lot of things. We'll do what we can to improve the website, we'll do what we can to use the newspaper. We'll use public access. We're gonna use everything.
Have to.
Every vehicle that's involved, we'll use it. Again, I wanna stress it, what we're trying to do is be consistency of message, so.
Right.
You'll see a lot, I mean, my Facebook page for the town for 3 days has had so much coronavirus, I don't think anyone's reading it. I mean, there's been 3 likes on the
That's it, that's it.
It's
What-
too much, so we have to be careful
that's
about
the
how
problem.
we're
Right,
gonna.
just don't give them a link and say, you need to bury
You're
down.
absolutely right.
Right.
Yep.
So we don't wanna
It's gotta
have
be right there.
60 pages of stuff.
So,
Right, it just
So,
needs to
Ron.
be short and, you know, it needs to be concise.
so I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. I just
Well,
pulled,
exactly.
I just pulled up what Dudley Charles, and it just breaks it down. Mitigating community transmission, we can just read that. Establish social distancing, and then,
Sturbridge's is very similar,
Yeah.
and it's basically the same.
I think
No
that's
offense,
on
guys, we
the
can't nearly do the kind of job that the state and federal government are driving. They're pumping
Oh,
out
no,
everything
this
like
is
crazy.
just, no,
So
these
we're
are
gonna
just,
add to that, but
No, these
we
are
can't
just the
compete with it.
statement.
They're putting out.
no, these are
these
just
are-
like
these are
bullet
just a
things of
Board of
what
Health
people can do.
statement.
To,
If the board is comfortable with it, I would like to invite the chair and the vice chair to my office tomorrow to come up with the first basic message that we will then share with Ed Moore of the hospital and work back and forth with him through an email. But I would ask that the board support
So you
the
go
vice
back-
chair and the chair
No,
to
we're
work on
going,
this.
No, you go back.
we're going in reverse, because that
You're
would
going
be
in
us
reverse.
putting something out to the council.
No, so Ed Moore has already agreed that his professional team is gonna develop a
They're
message.
going to
No.
do
And
it.
work with us.
Ed
So
Moore
we're gonna-
agreed that he and I would put a message together.
That's not what he said today. He
That's
said
what he
his professional team, his media people, will start developing a message, bring it to us, and we'll work from there. That was Ed's message.
Yes.
social distancing.
Alright, so we want to be clear, that was his thing.
That was
And Ed's got the right people to do it. What was agreed upon today, the message would be no longer than 2 minutes. So short and sweet, and on the message. Now, we'll bring it to you, because I said it's I want you to confirm with me when that message comes to you.
We're talking about the Everbridge
That's
message.
the
I'm
Everbridge
talking
message,
about
we're talking about.
the website,
We're talking about the website.
what we're gonna put
We're
out
talking
there
about the website.
from the board on the website.
But the other thing is why are we gonna do double duty?
Well, there's different avenues that people are gonna reach at, so.
But I'm
some
saying
people
the
are gonna
same
get
message.
Eversource message, I mean, to me, the simplest thing here is not to create our own words, but to really link to the CDC, link to the board, the State Department of public health, and the World Health Organization. Those 3 sites alone have more information than anybody ever is gonna want to read.
Well, no, I don't.
If you just link that information and get people to hit that link,
I'm with you.
we should be adding.
I don't think that's what we're talking about. I think there's, so Sturbridge, Charlton, they just put out, their Board of Health agency actually just kind of put out a brief statement saying, you know what, we're here, this is what, we're working. They have the links in it, but they're just kind of explaining, okay, we know what's going on, we want you to know, we're working at this, it's a fluid situation. It's just a nice brief statement.
How to protect yourself.
That's supposed to be the message of the reverse 911. That was the theme of the message of 911. So we can build off of that and use that same message, but that is what I was told
it's
the
like
911
reason, like what we're doing and what we're asking of the community, to, social distancing, no groups larger than 20, those things, and why we're asking that.
Focus attention on
this is what we're doing right now. If things change, we will,
just a question, right? So all of that is in the website, the CDC website, the distancing, the hold the mask, all that. You
right,
want
but
to use that and put it into a local.
But I think the point is just to attach a link and say, here, look at this. People are not doing that, and they're saying that they can't find that. They want to actually see that somebody cares and has taken the time to actually write something.
And one of the
And it
problems
just has to be something brief. It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
And then where do you want to locate that? Put it everywhere. You want to put it on the Facebook page. You want to put it on the website. You want to send it out to the newspaper. So we develop an additional press release. So
every single kid in the school system should be bringing that
so that they
home.
know that we,
We're aware of the
so that they know that we're
situation.
aware of what's
So
going
then
on.
the answer is we'd be more than happy tomorrow when you want to come and meet with Andy.
Okay.
I'd be happy to attend it. We
Perfect.
can draft up that message, and then we can use that message and send it out to everybody we met with today and get that message out if you wanted to find it.
Perfect.
Okay. And that will be a more general message than the specific 2-minute drill we're going to do on the reverse 911. I think that's fine.
Okay, great.
You're just going to make it reasonably short.
Oh, no, absolutely.
That's easy. I mean, putting some of that information is easy. So
Okay.
Just using all the platforms.
Some of it's going to be cut and paste and
Right, exactly. It's
The CDC website, there's links and
There's
there's
just
so
stuff
CDC
It's just
website, I went
all
on as easy as can be in terms of,
Okay.
it has symptoms, you click on symptoms, you can click on, what.
I know.
Right,
Wait,
it's
it's a
just-
really
it's
nice
just a
website,
lot.
I thought. Both the state and CDC were really good.
Okay.
Quick question. How do you, because we know a few people that think this way, and I bet that we're not the only one. How do you reach the people who, quite frankly, think this is a government conspiracy?
Are you ever going to be
I
able
know
to
he
reach
was
those
on.
people?
Oh, possibly not.
So,
That's what I've heard
Have we heard?
from 3 different customers.
let me give you a saying.
You don't want to get in on that.
Let me give you a saying that we use, like for the hazmat. The goal is to do the best for the most.
There you go.
Okay, little funny
Amen.
story.
Yep.
Had a
Let's
patient
not
the other night, decided to sore throat.
Because we're never going to be perfect.
Right, I like that. Let's not be perfect. Let's just.
Perfect be the enemy.
Yep.
I get to do some work tonight before I leave on this, so.
Perfect. So I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. All right.
I make a motion we adjourn.
Thank you, Doctor.
I know, right?
Really appreciate it. I would like to.
Oh, I can't make a motion.
All right, what do we have left on here?
I would like to table.
Because I will,
Yeah, I
I will tell you something, there was
I'm
a
not ready
conference
to.
call today, statewide at the Academy, that they are discussing the stuff statewide on open meeting laws and curbing stuff like this because there's nothing time sensitive.
Right, well,
Nothing in this agenda is time sensitive, so lessen the
I agree,
contact.
I agree.
Or is there?
Actually, there's one time sensitive.
Illegal dumping on Pleasant
Oh,
Street?
no,
EDS
no,
tabletop.
don't
Oh.
worry about that.
We
because
have a
Oh,
call
yes.
from Second Chance. We are trying
Oh,
to
yes.
save
Trying to
the
save
event. We
the
have a
event.
function
They
scheduled for
canceled.
not this Saturday, next Saturday. Functional exercise of the drive-through. We're going to exercise a rabies clinic. Second
Drive-through.
Chance backed out because of coronavirus. I argue that
It's a drive-through.
this is going to be safer for them to vaccinate dogs at this clinic than it is to have people come into their clinic, but they canceled.
Okay.
We are going to spend tomorrow reaching out to other vets, seeing what it would cost, checking with our budget to see if we can fund an event. If we cannot save it by noon tomorrow, then the event is canceled. We can't short order.
Let me ask you something. The intent of that event, correct me wrong.
Intent of the event
Was
the
to
intent,
do, yes,
okay?
drive
Alicia
through,
left.
yes.
Wasn't it a setup to
For
get
this.
credit?
It is.
The irony.
So there was no,
But
don't
with
make me
the
get your husband.
But with the introduction of the topic at hand, it was also kind of critical that we practice this thing so that we know when they come up with vaccine, they'll be
Okay.
a year away,
But-
we can do it.
You're absolutely right. But if
What is
second
the date
chance,
for
No, 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 don't do
21,
that.
it's a
That
week from
has to be
Saturday.
cool.
If second chance can't do it, to have
What time was it?
9 to 1, I think
10
roughly.
10 to 12.
10 to 12, something like that.
How many people do you think it was gonna be?
We have no clue.
Last year it was 89
80.
dogs. So,
But if second chance
I
doesn't,
talked to Andy a couple of days ago, and we did something on it to put it in the paper, so.
but if second chance doesn't come,
Because I might be able to get us a vet.
and we have to cancel the rabies clinic, can we still get credit if a handful of us go and set it up like we did a setup at Colaf for the,
I will call Jamie and find out. We can still do the setup.
Yeah.
The
and think about it, if we do the setup and work our own people on what the setup would be for and how it would flow, does it matter if we're handing out water, swabbing somebody's mouth, or doing a clinic? It will be, we will have the exposure.
It's a matter of whether they say it's okay, you know, and I think that it makes sense to
But what
find
if I can
out.
get us a vet?
Yes, find out.
the issue is the setup really became secondary to the function.
To the function.
Can this thing work? And a functional exercise would have told us that and given us a huge, Paul Wilmington
We were the
said
only
it
ones in
also.
the state.
This will give us a huge comfort level that when that vaccine becomes available, we can handle this. I'd like to get another vet involved and we'll see what we have for funds for that.
Can you get another bag?
I might be able to.
This is why we did the zombie apocalypse. It's all coming together.
I don't know, maybe.
It's all
It
about.
doesn't work on Saturday.
Oh, so that
This
was
is it.
About the zombies.
So I just wanted to let the board know that that's in jeopardy right now.
You
We're
all
trying to
laughed
save it,
about the zombies,
but I don't know what we can.
but it's all coming back.
Okay,
All right. All right.
You can table the rest.
all right.
I make a motion
we
that
all
we
agree.
table everything.
Absolutely.
So you want to go down to agenda 11 for the temporary?
Sure.
So to schedule the next normally scheduled monthly Board of Health meeting,
Wait a second.
I have April 9th, which will be the second Thursday of April,
6:30.
6:30, same time, same place, as long as we
Okay.
can get the room,
Got it.
as long as,
As long as nothing
and
else
if we need
happens in
something
the
in the
interim.
meantime, something, that's something different.
Absolutely.
Is there anything in particular the board members would like on the agenda?
At this moment, no.
Nothing.
At this moment, no.
Obviously, coronavirus will be on there.
Well,
Absolutely, yeah.
And let's do this, because looking at all this other stuff here,
Yeah,
if
so-
we are going to do, we
Say
will,
the second?
EDS will be off.
April 9th,
Styrofoam,
April
6:30.
it's nice, but if we have to do coronavirus, let's keep the agendas.
This will be
quiet.
off.
God, of course.
Because that won't be on there.
Yep,
So that'll be off. We'll have to table this.
and if we
That'll
still have
be
to
off.
talk about corona in a month, I think that should be all,
I'm sure
pretty much
probably
the
We
will.
are definitely
topic
going
we
to be
should have.
talking
Yeah,
about
I'm sure we
corona.
probably will, yeah.
So
That's not
we'll
going.
just,
Hopefully, we can talk about corona, saying that the curve has gone away and it's,
hopefully that
sun
it's
is coming and
severe.
it's going away.
Hopefully that it's-
Dr. Stevens said this is going to change within the next 10 days.
Of course it is.
Yeah, but which direction?
In that case, if there's no further business, I would make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
No argument with that.
Yeah.
Time tomorrow.